Thank you, and hello, my baby gorillas. I've got to get used to this, and I'll have to reprogram it. Hope everybody's doing well, and let's crack right on with the show. Let's see what's happened. So, the Scottish people like to be predictable, and we've got the same characters back in the same situation. Virtually, oh dear, lack of positivity there, but never mind. So, I hope you're having a good Sunday. Love my baby gorillas, and it'll be very interesting to reminisce about the Scottish election results in 2021. And of the 129 seats, very few surprises. So we've got Nicola Sturgeon, aka Wee Nippy, back in power. The misandrous, anti-white racist, race-baiting, globalist shill, kidding on she's a nationalist, and the reverse racist party that she's already on the record for saying she's she's not a nationalist. So what are you, Nicola, rather than what you're not? Yeah, I noticed that when Jada Francis asked you if you were a Marxist, you didn't actually answer it, which I think speaks volumes. And we certainly know that you're a man-hater and you're bringing in anti-white racist Marxism through your critical race theory, and you can't run a bath. So all typical of Marxist administrations. So here we've got Mr. Ross, and very much he's neither up nor down for me, Douglas Ross. I'm very Magnolia, say pair of hands. He's not said anything that's stupid, not done anything that's stupid yet, and I've not really got a real grasp on it. I think that's why the Conservative Party didn't go up or down in its seat tally. And then Mr. Sarwar, to be fair to Mr. Sarwar, he actually didn't have a bad election campaign, still losing 2 seats. So I think the whole political party are going down the tubes. The basically the Labour Party are going down the tubes quicker than a turd round the U-bend, because Mr. Sarwar doesn't seem to be able to grow the party either. So only 2 Labour MSPs were actually elected, less than the Liberals directly elected as MSPs, less than the Liberals, less than even the Conservatives, less than they were the third less. Only the Greens through the list got more MSPs, but only 2 were directly elected by the Labour. Now, if you only think back a number of years, there were so many elected by Labour. Now, the difficulty is because we have got quite a left-wing electorate, that we're just floating between the SNP, left-wing neo-Marxist. I would say Anis Sarwar and himself being a posh middle-class milk for son of a multi-millionaire. Don't know how his father got the money to actually set up the place, his business, coming from nothing, as he said, to Scotland. Don't know where the money came from. Posh boy, went to Hutchie, in line with posh boy Keir Starmer, both multi-millionaires in their own right, gone to private schools, and basically that liberal metropolitan elite that are meant to be representing the working class. No wonder they're going down the tubes. And I'll make a prediction that wee Georgie Porgy is standing at the next by-election, and I think Georgie Porgy will do rather well. The Labour Party are not going to get re-elected. I would say I think it's a Conservative win, and that Keir Starmer will go. But the difficulty with Keir Starmer going is that the Labour Party is just full of crackpots. It's like wall-to-wall idiots. So who's going to replace him? What great Diane Abbott, Lammy Diane Abbott dream team. Who's going to replace Starmer? they don't have anybody. They're all Remainers. They're all the part of that liberal elite bubble. They're all very, very far left. They're all bending the knee to Marxist organisations still. Anti-Semitic. Who's going to run it? Who's going to be there to actually run it? The Labour Party are on a death spiral. Now they're talking about working with the Marxist Green Party, who are absolutely wall-to-wall fruit and nuts. The Green Party conference in Scotland's like the Village Idiot conference. If you picked every village idiot out of Scotland and put them in the one location they managed to get there, it would be the Green Party conference. So, I mean, really, so we're just talking about from one left-wing party to another left-wing party to another. So Sarwar's maybe a sort of social democrat, obviously being a rich posh boy. The Conservative Party, I don't know what the Conservative Party are concerning. It must be Marxism now, because they seem to be right on board with the critical race theory. They've not done anything. They've done very little to stop the attacks on freedom of speech. We already know that there's a globalist cabal inside the Conservative Party dictating things. They're now attacking Boris Johnson to get Rishi Sunak, the shill for the I don't know who did Rishi Sunak is out. Rishi, there he is. Who did he work for? So Goldman Sachs, so he's an ex-Goldman Sachs banker, so he's probably in with the Zionist, the globalist control. I think one of his pals from Goldman Sachs went to run the BBC. So the cabal, although look, he's got brown skin and all that, he's modern, he's just another shell for the globalists. So let's not kid on that he would be an improvement. I don't think he would get elected anyway. I don't think he's very good as a politician anyway. So I would probably just stay with Bojo, although I think Bojo's got limitations as well. I think the person who's most effective and certainly the dispatch box will be Harry Potter, Old Mog. So yeah, I think he's probably the most likely to get the nod ahead of Sunak. I don't know why he's even in the frame, because he didn't impress me at all. I would have said that what's his face was probably more impressive. What's his name? Javid was probably more impressive. I think obviously we already know the internal macerations that the Goldman Sachs and globalist financial establishments run over the Conservative Party. That's why it's a corporatist party. That's why I wouldn't be voting for the Conservatives either. And while they're actually conserving and promoting critical race theory, I mean, these are postmodernist Marxist ideologies, and they're not standing up for freedom of speech, and they're not doing enough. I would be kicking students off the campus and debarring them if they're not for protesting, but if they're actually trying to prevent speakers. I would just say, right, this speaker's going ahead, get the police down, make sure it was actually done properly, make sure that the person went ahead with the speech. And if anybody was causing violence, they would be kicked off the campus, arrested, kicked off the campus, and they would stop their education. And that will soon put a stop to violent protests. I'm not talking about peaceful protests, I'm talking about violent protests and cancellation. Put them in jail for cancelling people. That'll stop like that. And then they can peacefully protest. They should not have. This is harassment. They should not have the right to cancel people that they don't agree with. So that means if I can go up and do violent protests anywhere, then I've got the right to be violent and cancel people, because that's the way it's going to go. So. And this is a failure by the police to take enough effort to prevent violent mobs attacking people based on their political ideology. or if they don't agree with them. And that's because the globalists have actually not done that, and the globalists use these mobs to literally silence people who don't agree with through the police. That's why, obviously, with the rape gangs down south, they've been allowed to terrorise indigenous white children and gang rape them with the sanction of the political class, who use Antifa and use other Marxist mobs to actually prevent other people who may have a different viewpoint from actually speaking. So the globalist politicians use these and don't get the police to do their job properly and prevent this from actually happening. Oh, come on. So we all know this, and now they've got brought in mass scale, which obviously helps the globalists because they can cheat postal votes. So you should be protesting against postal votes. If you can't be bothered going and putting an X in a box, people have died, get their legs blown off, and you can't go along to a polling station with ID, which is what the fetus eaters, the lotus eaters have actually said that France do. Go along with your ID to the actual polling station, and you can't do that, then hell slap up you. But let me just go down here. I'll skip down here. I'll come back to this and I'll skip down, because this is what I was wanting to show you. So this is the elections. This is the May elections here. So these are the number of people who actually voted. This is the total number of votes. This is 99.81% of the actual votes, 2,700,000 plus. So there's 2,718,000. But the total number of registered voters is actually 4,280,000. So there's a 1.5 million people, 1.5 million people in Scotland who didn't vote, who couldn't be bothered with actually putting an X in a box, or maybe they didn't know where to actually vote or who to vote for. There could be a number. My friend doesn't vote as well. She says, oh, they're all the same. Well, they're all the same if you don't go out and vote. There is a plethora of now parties, and I know for a fact these are not all the same. A lot of these, and I'll come into this in a second, a lot of these are in different parts of the spectrum, so they're not all the same. You've now got a huge choice, and I would suggest that the choice gets rationalised a wee bit, but I'll come into that in a second. You've now got a huge choice of parties, and especially on the second vote and the list vote, that you can start going out and getting in, because if you think that 1.5 million is more votes, is a significant more votes than the SNP got on their constituency list, and they get 47.7%. So if the 1 million votes that the people that couldn't be bothered going and put an X in the box, maybe they didn't know about politics, maybe they don't understand, maybe they think it's all the same, it's not going to change anything. It will change things. If you vote for somebody else, that changes things. If you don't, we're stuck with these five parties, and nothing will change. If you can't be bothered going out and putting an X in a box, and people have got the legs blown up, the faces. I was looking at people who were disfigured in the Second World War, who had got plastic surgery for actually getting a right to vote, and people can't go along and actually vote. So, but that 1.5 million who didn't vote in Scotland is greater than the 1.29 million who voted for the SNP. And that 1.5 million could have totally transformed, unless that 1.5 million is happy with the way that the country is going, and happy with the direction, and happy with the political class, and they didn't feel any need to go out and vote because they were quite happy with it. That's another potential situation. But that 1.5 million who couldn't be bothered to go out and vote, or didn't want to vote, or whatever reason they've got for not voting, could have changed the whole election. They're a bigger constituency than, for example, the constituency vote for the SNP, the Greens and the Liberal Democrats combined. So that 1.5 million would have changed Scottish politics, the ones that are not voting. which is an incredible thing. What are you guys saying? So it sounds like money. I don't believe any of it. Do you know it's rigged against the people? Well, I think certainly it's easier to rig through postal ballots, and we have to complain about making sure our political process is tight. I reckon it got faked. I reckon it got faked. I don't think it did, but it's easier done. If you can't go along and put an X in a box, you can't walk wherever the polling station's usually walkable distance from your house, and you can't be bothered going and actually putting the X in the box. You need to start protesting. You need to start protesting for proper ballots, making sure we get rid of postal votes. You need to make sure we have ID. So you need to have pressure groups and take to the streets, go to the streets, say we don't want postal votes, we want ID for people who are voting, and then it'll certainly tighten up. If there is any fakery, it'll certainly tighten up and make it harder if it is being faked for these people to fake it. Looking at the numbers, I think it's fake. The Alba party, I thought, would have got more. I would have thought that Alex Salmond would have got more. But the Greens seem to have... You can see the transfer of votes from the Greens. And I think it was fake. It could have been faked around the edges, but wholesale... No, I don't think it is. I just think that if you go out and vote... and the 1.5 million who didn't even turn up to the polling station went out and voted, that's going to make a massive difference in Scottish politics. It's a massive difference. I mean, that's bigger than the SNP, the Greens and the Liberal Democrats and the constituency vote alone. That 1.5 million who didn't want to turn up. And they could have voted for any one of these parties that they liked, and that would have made a hell of a difference. And maybe got other people on the list. You can see here... The liberal undemocratic Democrats get 5.06% and 0 regional MSPs, and the Greens got 8.2 and got 8. So somewhere in between that 5.06 and 8.2 is the sweet spot to actually start to get MPs. But you can see the Alba Party, who are a new party, I'll come back to everything in a second. The Alba Party, who are a new party, only got 1.66%. I thought they would be hitting about 3%. But even at 3%, they're still going to get 0 MPs. So I think this needs to be proportional representation rather than what it is just now. I think we need to get further down so we get alternative voices in the Scottish Parliament. I think it just being these 5 parties, it then causes problems because we don't actually hear alternative viewpoints. But for Alba or Unity, or for Unity, I'll come for both of them later. That it would have been better for them to be listed here and actually have a variation of political discourse in the Scottish Parliament, although I don't think the Alba Party per se would have been that great a variation, because that would have just been Alex Salmond, who's basically de facto... I'll come back to the differences in that in a minute. So, but no, I don't think it was faked. But I think that there is a big opportunity for, if you can get people who can't be bothered voting to actually motivate them to vote, then you're going to see a change in politics, because that's a huge amount of people who can't be bothered going to the polling station. So let's go back up and have a wee read through this. And we'll get to that later on. Do not ever trust the Greens. Yeah, don't ever trust the Greens. That's correct. That's correct. So the Scottish 2021 Scottish Parliament election took place on the 6th of May 2021 under the provision of the Scotland Act 1998. All 129 members of the Scottish Parliament were elected in the 6 elections since the Parliament was re-established in 1999. Now, I'm telling you just now, Nicola Sturgeon has been increasingly bad at leading Scotland. So I voted for her to start off with. I was all in favour of, and I made the mistake of playing identity politics. Oh, we should have a woman in charge. She'll be good. She was under Alex Salmond, and she'll be competent. And now we've found out that she's not competent. Now, I don't think all women are not competent. I don't think that at all. But she's going increasingly downhill with her Marxism, basically, which is again is leading to incompetent governance. Oh, we're postmodernist Marxists. You're still a Marxist. They had to change it, and we've now seen in America with the not postmodernist Marxists, Marxist BLM, who are nicking all the money and buying houses. What was it? Big living mansions or something like that. Black Lives Mansions or something. There's somebody did a cracking joke about what BLM stood for, and these Marxists are buying these huge houses on the back of your money. Oh, well, I guess some Black Lives matter more than other Black Lives to other Black lives. So that was obviously a scam. So these Marxists, they were then joining the capitalist system by buying huge houses on the back of BLM. On a thing that wasn't actually racist in its connotations, although I do definitely agree that the person shouldn't have been kneeling on the back of the guy's neck, but the white officer that knelt on the back of and killed the white suspect in America, was nothing was said about that, because obviously this is the new acceptable face of racism, anti-white racism, and it's done by Wee Nippy. So Wee Nippy, the slap my bitch up, I'm not a nationalist, Marxist, actually hates her own people. This is reverse racism. Remember I told you there's a whole bunch of like communists who hate their own people. These would be called traitors before, but this is what Wee Nippy is. Wee Nippy is a postmodernist Marxist, and they hate their own people. They won't stick up for their own people. She's basically a sellout scumbag, and that's what Nippy is. So, and then she's on the record for saying, I'm not a nationalist. Well, what are you? I want to know what you are, not what you're not. I don't get any kudos for what you're not. I think Sawar's probably a social democrat. He's probably a wee bit more like Alex Salmond in the position where he is in the political compass. I actually think Sarwar, although obviously was asking him poignant questions about him being part of a child rapist death cult, in the political context, if I take out Islam, which is obviously, and the fact he's an anti-white racist as well, he's probably a social democrat underneath all of that, not probably on the left, the Marxist left, probably a wee bit like Keir Starmer, I would think. So the election was held alongside the Snedden election, local elections in London Assembly and mayoral elections, and the Hartlepool by-election. The Labour Party lost again. Next by-election, next. So here we go. Political, which is quite a good online political journalism. This was the 30th of May. So this is all today. UK Labour losing hope over next big by-election fight. A loss in the seat would serve a fresh blow to Keir Starmer. Is it a fatal blow? Well, who's going to take over from him? What doughball in the Labour Party is going to take over for them? It's just wall-to-wall doughballs. The Labour Party might get supplanted by an actual proper classical Liberal Party. Not the jumped-up metropolitan elite Liberals who are basically just corporatists and not very nice people. A proper Liberal Party may also help the working class more if it was done properly, and they may see that as an alternative to the Conservatives, who God knows what they're conserving. So the Labour might be like as I said, like a turd that is going round the U-bend. It's just about to flush, and as a political entity. because who's good, who's worth voting for? The Scottish people worked out, and it's moving further south. The red wall's going, and all they've got is London. The London, the metropolitan capital, is going to be the Labour stronghold, isn't it? And maybe some of the other cities in England, but they could only get 2 MSPs elected in Scotland. All the rest are on the regional list. So the 2 are first past the post, and if you think 40 MPs, and they don't look like they're winning back in Scotland, so they can win a general election probably down south, and especially with the Tories destroying the red wall, they look like they're going to get absolutely smashed next election. So yeah, so. And now there's a war between Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson. I think we would be on probably just now on the Boris Johnson side. Although I think Boris was saying that, rightly so, that we shouldn't be doing the lockdowns. It's illiberal and non-libertarian. And I think that's what he was probably correct. We should have done social distancing. Maybe wearing protective gloves and masks and socially distanced. I think that would have been fine. But now Dominic Cummings seems to be backing, which is a bit weird, the Goldman Sachs candidate, which I wouldn't be surprised if it's not part of the globalist cabal, who are now got connections with Silicon Valley and are now interfering in British politics, with British politicians, unelected politicians, but still closing down profiles of British elected politicians, probably on the bequest of, what's that wee daddy's name? Nick Clegg. So Nick Clegg is obviously working with Facebook, and obviously part of the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats. These characters, the self-entitled liberals. This is where they're going to be the illiberal liberals and the classical liberals, or the libertarian liberals. There's going to be a new party, because obviously these people are incorrigible. So I would suspect that Nick Clegg, who's working with Facebook and probably in contact with other Silicon Valley entities, is closing down the accounts, or getting them to Silicon Valley to close down the accounts of people who don't agree with these absolute twats. So that's probably the connection there, because I don't think Silicon Valley is doing this and interfering in British politics by themselves. And don't forget, the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats are just another globalist corporatist cabal as well. Just like Nippy, just like Conservatives, just like the Labour Party. There's not one that's not part of the globalist cabal that moves towards one world government. And wee Nippy is obviously bringing in the UN legislation from unelected UN to supplant Scottish law. I mean, you couldn't write it. Because you can't even think up any of our own laws, apart from hums are useless. So, UK Labour losing, oh my goodness. UK Labour losing hope over next big by-election. And there's Georgie Porgy Galloway coming in, and it looks like he could get a huge amount of votes from Labour. And that's going to really smash the Labour Party again with Georgie Porgy. Getting a huge, and that really torpedoes them in this seat. London, the UK opposition Labour Party is not hopeful of winning a up-and-coming by-election. In public, Shadow Home Secretary Nick Thomas Symonds insists Labour, battered by recent elections, could retain the Batley and Spain. So let's have a look at Batley in Spain. Constituency. So it's in Yorkshire. So it's right in the Midlands, and in Yorkshire. This is where the red wall is. So Batley in Spain is a constituency in the House of Commons, the UK Parliament in West Yorkshire. It was a constituency of Joe Cox, who was assassinated in 2016. Tracy Brabin, a member of the Labour and Cooperative Party. The Cooperative Party is a separate party, but they believe in it's almost like Antifa, where they believe in workers' co-ops and things like that, which I don't really have a problem with, to be honest with you. If a group of workers want to set up a business and want to run in a cooperative measure, I don't see the problem. Go right ahead. A by-election will be held after Brabin was elected as the West Yorkshire Metro Mayor. So a population of 107,000. Well, elected 2 British National Party councillors and were narrowly defeated by Labour in 2007-2008. A by-election in 2016 occurred as a result of the murder of Joe Cox. The sitting MP died on the 16th of June after being shot and stabbed multiple times by a man associated with, well, they keep saying far right, but they don't know where the guy was associated with, to be brutally honest. And the far right is just a catch-all for not being part of he's probably been an extreme anti-globalist, I would think, potentially. All announced that they will not contest the by-election as a mark of respect. So here we go. I don't know when this is. Let's just see if we can get an actual date. So 2019. So the Labour, look at the Labour Party, up at 90%. 2016, 90%, and now it's crashing down. So the Conservative Party are now looking like they could actually take the seat. Georgie Porgy Galloway will take a chunk out of that Labour vote. By-election latest 2 days ago. Here we go. So this is the Yorkshire Post. Let's make this bigger for you guys. So here we go. Batley in Spain by-election, the latest in the constituency's unusual poll history. The Yorkshire Post says pundits will be turning their gaze towards Batley and Spain after it was announced the by-election is due to take place on July the 1st. So just over a month. This is it's going to take place in this town hall. It effectively gives a month to prove their worth despite the contest. Unsettling contest. The last by-election was sparked by the murder of Joe Cox, the 5th anniversary of which is 2 weeks before the polling day. It comes after Tories took Hartlepool and the latest in a number of so-called red wall seats turning blue in recent years. But this occasion, Joe Cox's sister, Kim Leadbeater, is contesting the seat. If her work since her sibling's death is then to go by, this should bestow a degree of decorum on what could otherwise have been a vicious battle as Labour attempts to beat the Conservatives. Ryan Stevenson, Leeds councillor, focused on overturning former MP Tracy Bribin's slim majority. One thing that may hamper campaigning is the Indian variant of coronavirus, and the government advised against all but essential travel in Kirklees as it emerged that the district was one of 8 highest hit areas. This makes it an unusual election and constituency, and has seen its fair share of those. This is its fifth parliamentary election in just 6 years. Wow! I think some Labour. Why did the Labour? Why did the Labour Party leave? So 5 weeks, Labour, MSN, means curtains. George Galloway says he would only serve until 2024. A message from Georgie Porgy. George Galloway says he would only serve until 2024 if he won the Batley in Spain by-election, as Bradford West Naz Shah calls him an absentee MP. Former MP George Galloway has revealed he would only serve for 3 years at most if he won the up-and-coming Batley in Spain by-election, as he was described as an absentee MP over his past voting records. The campaigner who was expelled from the Labour Party in 2003, was the MP for Bradford West 2012-2015, standing as a candidate for the Workers' Party of Britain. So he's not standing for Unity for All again. So this is another reincarnation of the far left as usual, because obviously Georgie Porgy is a self-avowed Marxist and seems to support every totalitarian, authoritarian governance in the world, apart from the democratically elected one. So, but good luck to George. I think he'll actually do quite well down there. And what that'll do is have a big chunk out of the Labour Party support if Georgie Porgy is actually standing. But why did who was the Labour MP So she's another member of the British Labour and Cooperative. She's another cooperative. Tracy Biden MP. Born 61. Biden was 2016 by-election. Joe Cox. Succeeding and appointed her shadow. She resigned as an MP after winning the 2021 West Yorkshire mayoral election. All right, she's now the mayor, and that's why she resigned. Because a lot of these Labour MPs have been one scandal after another, but she's obviously, it's not been scandalous for her for her resignation. Triggered an up-and-coming by-election. She is the first ever MP to be a Metro Mayor. Bryden was born in Batley and West Riding of Yorkshire and was educated at Hockwalk Grammar School. She studied drama. So she wasn't part of the scandalous Labour Party resignations that have happened over the period of time as well. And I think there's probably going to be more by-elections, because I think there's people who have done things that they've been forced to leave. Obviously she left to become the mayor. So I think there'll be more by-elections coming up. A senior Labour official predicted a loss in the by-election, so they're already predicting losses. Currently penciled in for July, and insist high Conservative support in the polls and situations on the ground meant it would be incredibly difficult to win. Wow, a loss on this seat where Labour had a slim 3,525 majority would serve a fresh blow to leader Keir Starmer after Labour lost a critical by-election in Hartlepool alongside a disappointing set of elections results earlier this month. Asked in Politico Live interview whether Labour could hold on to battling in Spain, Thomas Simons said, yes, we will be working extremely hard to do that, and that was what we have to do. We have to be out there fighting for every single vote. But the Labour officials said, I don't think we will win. I can see a path to it, but the situation on the ground and in the country is what it is. The idea we can magic up some policy offer that trumps the vaccine rollout and reopening the country is for the birds. All right. So the Labour Party have already sort of resigned themselves to actually losing another Labour heartland seat. So, I mean, as I said, they've lost all the seats in Scotland. They're down 2 seats for MSPs in Scotland, the Labour Party. They've only got 22 left or something like that. So they're only, in fact, we'll come to that in a second. They've not, but everything's collapsing for the Labour Party. A lot of these people who were Labour supporters were small C Conservatives, not actual Conservatives. And now the working class is flipped because they don't like all this anti-white racism, all this anti-British racism from people who have came here and emigrated here. The fact that this has been supported through our institutions as well, they don't like any of that. They don't like what the Labour Party stands for anymore. They think they're just a bunch of woke Marxists, and this is major. And the Labour Party is now in a death spiral, anti-Semitic, because of all the Islamists now in the Labour Party. And as I've told you before, Islam and the woke left are completely contradictory. Islam is very misogynistic. The woke left are anti-misogyny, and if not misandry, they're into misandry. Islam wants to kill gay people. The woke left want to promote homosexuality. So these two cannot coexist for very long until they start rubbing up against each other, which we've already seen. That actually Islam is a small C Conservative as well, and if they start to flip to the Conservatives as well, Labour are going right down the pan, because the Labour Party have got massive support from the Islamists and the left. What are you guys saying? So do not trust against you only require 10,000 signatures to sack Parliament. One sacked, they can never run for election again. This is a law. Wow. Islam and Nazism are the same thing. Well, they're certainly very similar. Yeah, I do agree. England and Scotland, Australia and Canada, and now America again, all have paedophiles in charge. That's certainly got something going on. I'm going to start a National Socialist Party. Are you? What is that? The SNP? They're more of a racist communist party now. They just hate Scottish people now in the SNP. That's what they are. They're a self-loathing party and meant to be a nationalist party. Oh, it's quite incredible. That would bring me home to destroy you. At Scotland First, you are a Hebrew. That's a stupid thing to do. Scotland First will be a slogan. Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the National Socialist Party. National Socialist Nazi. My Russian brother, Dias Volt. Not Russian, just translating, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, disavow National Socialism as well. I am not a socialist in any sort of manner. I'm a libertarian liberal, so I am not, won't be supporting any authoritarianism at all, or especially not left-wing authoritarianism, whether it be the racist, anti-racist racism of the left just now, who are anti-white racists now and self-loathing, which is probably why the Labour Party are losing all the seats. Surprised it's not caught up with the SNP yet. I'm sure that will come soon enough. But let's have a wee look at this young lady. Johnson. There she is. What's her name? Sasha.
Sasha Johnson, a mother of two and an ardent political campaigner who was at the forefront of many Black Lives Matter.
See, obviously when she was shot, I don't know if this was actually a bulletproof vest, but I don't know if the black militia was the people who actually shot her that she was calling for as well. I'm not sure.
Last summer, and is behind a new black-led political party.
Enough is enough!
Tonight, though, she is in a critical condition in hospital.
I hope she's okay, even though she's a Marxist racist, anti-white racist. I hope she's certainly okay. I certainly don't like to see any violence against any political opponent, regardless of how dangerous or racist or whatever they actually are.
After being shot in the head. This marquee, the scene of a party at the weekend in South London.
Well, I'd hate to be the neighbours there. I mean, that place looks like it's been turned upside down.
Now the focus of a police investigation into the shooting.
I do believe that it was a party and there was some type of dispute between two individuals or two gangs, and it was wrong place, wrong time. I do not believe that she was the target.
Forensic officers...
But she was calling for a black militia, maybe it was the black militia who were actual anti-racists that shot her. Maybe they were the anti-black militia and the anti-racist, anti-white racist, actual proper anti-racists that shot her. You just don't know.
Have been investigating the scene all day.
Maybe they were capitalists because she was a Marxist. Maybe the guys that shot her were into freedom and didn't like Marxists, because you can get black people. I think she was calling other black people coons, which I think is pretty racist, who don't agree with her.
And those in her political party believe Sasha Johnson was brutally attacked following numerous death threats.
Yeah, well, that didn't stand out very well. I think the young fella's of an African origin who shot her. So maybe he was an actual proper anti-racist and didn't like Sasha Johnson's racism, which she says is anti-racist. Maybe the guy was into freedom and shot her because she was a Marxist and wants to think she's it, basically. There's a number of things that young fella could have been, even though both of them are of African origin.
The Metropolitan Police say they are pursuing a number of lines of inquiry, but they say there had been no credible threats against Sasha Johnson before this incident, and they say they don't believe that she was the intended target. This afternoon, a vigil outside the hospital where Sasha Johnson is in intensive care.
I felt shocked, I felt saddened, I felt angry, and above all, I was thinking that I know her, two of her children, and I felt pain for what they must be going through.
A family and community.
But she was advocating violence, or certainly the construction of a black militia. I don't. Why we need a black militia in the UK is just beyond me. Why would you need that? Is that like but I mean, this is all part of the anti-racist, which is racist critical race theory that we nippies want to push in the Scottish education and teach your children how to hate themselves, and that's we nippies nationalism, Scottish nationalism.
Community want answers from the police, who are trying to work out how and why Sasha Johnson was shot.
of racism is capitalism. And they say about education, we need a black militia.
So you need a black militia in the UK? What for?
What we're saying is, you push, we push. You fight, we fight.
Now, politicians can be hyperbolic, and you can actually sort of forgive them for saying things that they probably say in heats of passion, shall we say. But I've yet to hear any British politician calling for a militia, and certainly in my lifetime, not maybe at all. But I don't know what the requirement would be for a Marxist black militia. Well, what's that? There is nothing really that's happening to black people in an industrial scale here that's that you can actually say, well, that's discriminatory. In fact, I would suggest that they're now getting preferential treatment.
Peace is not peace until you recognise our life, and we're not going to lay down anymore. I'm not going down on a knee. I'm always going to be 10 toes standing, just like my ancestors.
Unless you get shot in the head, obviously.
10 toes standing. No justice!
So this is importing what happened with Floyd, George Floyd, not relative to the UK at all, not a racist components to the actual case that was actually brought out in the trial. Yeah, we've got this genius talking about black militias in London for some obscure reason, where the only point of reference for a black militia would be against other black militias in London, because that's where the killings are coming from in London just now. What should happen is that what had happened in Glasgow, that social services and work with other departments like social work and health service and the police to actually go into these areas and try and talk to young people and do what they did in Glasgow and try and help them develop. That's what should happen. This woman is politically offering nothing. And it's ironical that she has been shot when she was advocating violence and black militias and racist anti-white Marxism. So, but wee Nippy is already doing that anyway, and she's meant to be a Scottish nationalist.
No justice! Take it to the...
No justice? What is not just? What is it that is not... What is it that you would have to give me specifics on what is not being just? What is it that you're being oppressed? If you were that oppressed, there's plenty of countries that are just full of African people. Why, if you were, and I don't believe they are, but if you were that oppressed, why would you not go back to a country? If it was that oppressive here, which I believe that this is complete showboating. Why would you not go to an African country if it was that bad? Because we all know it's not, and these people are, but it's not just that they're politicking. These are calling for violence, violent militias, violent left-wing Marxist militias.
The streets!
And the reason is that they can't actually, because any politician, anybody worth their salt would be able to destroy these political arguments, because we've heard them before. This is like the Black Citizen Smith. We've already seen it. There's nothing here. What's the difference between that and this guy? And this was in the 70s in the UK.
One festival of the people.
So he's even saying the same thing, taken to the streets. Now, I believe in protests anyway, but you've got to be protesting for something. That's why a lot of the Marxists actually hijack like gay rights things or feminist rights, and then they try and pervert it round to Marxism. And everybody thinks, oh, we want gay rights, or we want more liberal attitudes towards female rights and equality, and then it gets sort of subverted by the Marxists who have joined these causes and want to subvert it, and then everybody goes, hold on a minute, these guys are absolutely crackpots, and then they leave. And it happens time and time again. Doesn't matter, BLM, and then they find out that they're crackpots. And the underlying subversion by the Marxists into these groups who are almost like liberal groups, but then the subversion of the far left. The same with the Democrat Party in America, same with the SNP in Scotland, and the same with the Labour Party as well in the UK. These have all been infiltrated by absolute crackpots, and a lot of them now are in the Green Party, which is like crackpot central.
Kids dancing a ragamuffin dance of free.
So, I mean, it's just the same, isn't it?
I can't hear you. No justice. No justice. Take it to.
No, and it's ironic that she's been shot in the head. I mean, the irony is just absolutely staggering. Now, I don't want to see her shot. I definitely don't want to see her shot. But I mean, the rhetoric that is coming out of this young lady is just a violent rhetoric.
To the streets. Take it to the streets. I ain't scared of no terrorist group. The police is no different from the KKK.
Wait, who? I believe there was a. So obviously,
welcome to Raid Shadow Legends. And if you're wondering just what you're getting into,
police force.
This was a shocking incident that has left
the KKK London Met Police Force is now just about to discuss about Sasha Johnson.
A young woman with very serious injuries. Our thoughts are with the family of Sasha Johnson, who are being supported by specially trained officers. A dedicated team of officers and detectives are looking to find out who's responsible for this incident.
I think it's an 18-year-old person of African origin. So, which totally, but this is the member of the KKK police force. I don't know if they've done that deliberately, but I would suggest that there's a number of what used to be called BME, or I can't remember how the Lotus Eaters pronounce it, but Okamama or something like that. So
they're making good progress, but we need the public to help us. From our inquiry so far, we've established that Sasha had been at a party at a house on Consort Road in Peckham early on Sunday morning.
So, again, I'm just going to leave that there, but you can understand the rhetoric. I mean, it's just, we've seen it.
They stand around and protect statues and buildings instead of people. They need to join the local council and start to litter pick too.
Apparently the KKK police force found the actual person that shot her. Apparently this gentleman has been charged, obviously innocent until proven guilty.
When I say they have a pepper spray, we have our own too. They have smokes, we have it too. Come together, put your fist in the air. Black power!
Now, if this was a white person in the middle of London saying this, I'm sure that wouldn't last very long.
We need our own political party because we have David Lammy, tokenistic. We have Sadiq Khan, is tokenistic. Priti Patel.
So we're now going to have a Marxist party where the BLM have just stolen all the money to buy houses from their I'm a trained Marxist perspective.
Tokenistic. We've had so many inquiries. We've had the Grenfell inquiry, the Windrush inquiry, the Macpherson inquiry, the COVID inquiry. Fuck them.
Well, that's good. At least they're paying attention. I can't remember. I don't think they actually allowed me to have an inquiry into me being held for 2 years in Dubai. They weren't even prepared to actually look at it down in Westminster. So just shows you how things are playing out down there.
They know they're racist. Get ready to fight them.
I would suggest that I'd be more concerned about getting killed if I was of African origin in London by other people of African origin than any white supremacists down there. That would be my first worry, same in America as well. There's not really a massive situation. It's more, you probably run towards people, even if they were even white supremacists, because and not towards people that look like you from the statistics. From the statistics, it's not racist people that are killing black people in London, same in predominantly in America.
If they're going to bring peace, they know what's going to happen. One solution, revolution.
Tell me that's not Citizen Smith of an African origin. Tell me it's not.
Revolution! Revolution!
But why would you not just move? If you didn't like it here and you didn't like it, why would you not just move? Why would you want to burn down the place? Why would you not just go to somewhere that it would be much easier rather than start a revolution where you could get shot in the head, for example, that you could actually just pack your stuff up and go to another country. We moved out of a country, obviously against my will, but I moved out of a country to come back home. I didn't start saying, I'm going to overthrow or I hate people or I dislike the way things are working over there, and I wasn't complaining about the people. I just got on interacting with the people that were in that country, which I used to live in. But I didn't move there and say, I'm going to overthrow everybody. Well, I don't like it here. I'm going to change everything. I'm going to overthrow it to suit me. Didn't do that. So, what have we got? So there's real issues here for the Labour Party in battling Stroud, which could see, if Stammer fails to win the by-election, he could face open calls for his resignation. And so they said if we just change Corbyn, the Labour Party is going to be fixed. The Labour Party, because of the dough balls, if you watch the guys from the fetus eaters, let's just have a look at the fetus eaters. Oh, there it is. This is what's wrong with the Labour Party. Where is it, guys? Where have you done it? Oh, here it is, yeah. Can the Labour, or do we want to say the Labour Party? No, we don't, because it's full of crackpots like the Green Party. And now they want to do deals with the Green Party. So we've got one bunch of loon balls want to do deals with another bunch of loon balls.
Mixed with the Gamers, brought to you by Manscaped. You got sweaty nuts? Hold on, maybe I shouldn't have came in there.
Plus LGBT plus people.
LGBT plus.
Comrades, the beam, comrades, the beam, comrades,
Transgender comrades. Trans comrades.
LGBT plus comrades,
LGBT plus community. LGBT plus young people.
LGBT plus people, LGBT plus.
Just like the SNPs.
LGBT plus people.
LGBT plus. LGBTQ plus.
And these are not really people who stimulate me. I mean, all very well to have protect minority rights, but these people are not doing anything out with their own wee identity groups and actually explaining policy how they're going to change the country. All they're just saying is LGBT plus, and then that's it. They don't have any answers apart from going back to far left solutions like nationalise the railways, which I don't care about. That's not going to help me one iota.
LGBTQ plus. LGBT plus pay gap, trans and non-binary people.
I'm sent here by my CLP to represent our Black, Asian, minority ethnic members. For Black, Asian and minority adults, Black, Asian, minority ethnic children. An inclusive and equitable national education service requires an ambitious and overarching plan for Black, Asian and minority ethnic students, staff, including migrant children, adult learners and refugees. This is crucial in a time of rising racism.
Tom Barringer, Tottenham CLP, he, him pronoun.
One society, one species, all working together, no borders, no discrimination, everybody working.
This guy's been listening to too much John Lennon, isn't he? Imagine all the people.
If you've seen Star Trek, then you might appreciate that metaphor.
Yeah, that's stupid. That's stupid because you're stupid.
I just wanted to get up and speak and show my solidarity with all the different women we've had speaking today.
We need to challenge the patriarchy, and we need to challenge patriarchal structures. Patriarchy is about who holds the power, what they do with that power, and who makes the decisions. The feminist Bell Hooks, she says that the
communist Bell Hooks. So now they're now literally openly quoting communists. She's a self-avowed Marxist. So we already know that now they're quoting communists. It just shows you where the Labour Party are and where they're going.
Patriarchy isn't gendered. And we all know women.
The patriarchy isn't gendered. So you can be a misogynist female, apparently. But this has nothing to do with patriarchy or anything else, because we've got an incompetent woman in charge of Scotland, and I don't know whether you would describe her as patriarchal, being a lesbian Marxist, but slap a bitch up. But I don't, I mean, and we've got a female queen, so the patriarchy's not doing very well. But I think what they're actually meaning, and this is whiteness as well, they're talking about a liberal democracy capitalist structure as opposed to a Marxist structure that's never worked anywhere.
Margaret Thatcher, Theresa May, but we all know women in our own circles who are not necessarily...
Who are not indoctrinated into the Marxist ideology yet and not prepared to be bullied. I know, yeah, they're real female heroes.
Sympathetic to the issues that women...
Sympathetic to Marxism and being indoctrinated and using feminism and other aspects to indoctrinate women into Marxism, which has killed 100 million people so far. Oh, genius. Oh, big-brained individual here.
That black and Asian and immigrant...
Stop Brexit, racist, stop Brexit. No, I'm surprised that this guy didn't go down well in the leave seats in the north, the Red Wall. I'm surprised this is not absolutely won over votes. I'm surprised that Keir Starmer's not absolutely smashing it.
Delegates are given priority to speak.
That it is not just our role as a party
so there you go.
That it is not
so
just
there's I remember I told you there's racism and the anti-racism.
That black and Asian and immigrant delegates are given priority to speak.
Why are you giving them priority? Why? So this is the anti-racist. The anti-racism is racist. So because you are of a specific group, that you are given priority over the indigenous population. Why would you do that? That's not even anti-racist. That's racist. That's saying because I'm of this identity, I should get priority. Why? And also, obviously, we know that the Conservative Party, in the middle of a pandemic, are letting people into the country, yet we can't go out. People are just coming in from the war-torn country of France, being allowed into the country, and yet we are going to have this pass card to actually be allowed out of the country in the middle of a pandemic, while at the same time this gentleman's saying that we should then prioritise people who have just come here over the indigenous population. And that's anti-racist. And they then can call anybody else who doesn't agree with their racist Marxist ideology racist. So that's how it's going to work. That's how their ideology. You already saw me getting called racist by a guy who I've never met, who's a journalist from ITV and STV, Peter the Plonker Smith, as you know now. Peter the Plonker, I've never met him before, but yeah, he's allowed to just shout racist, and as we all know, and the people who have commented on it never said anything racist. But that's their agenda. The agenda is just shout racist then, and far right racist, and buzzword patriarchy, whiteness, and that way they don't have to justify, because they are absolute doughballs of any policy that's going to positively affect the country. That's the way that they want to shut down the conversation. And that's why nobody's voting for you anymore. Because the normal person on the street is too intelligent. When they see this, they get turned off. Because every one of those people are doughballs and nobody's going to vote for them.
That it is not just our role as a party to fight against injustices that we see today.
Get a haircut.
but we must also correct the injustices of the past.
Oh, do we? Oh, so are the English then going to go back to Germany, and it's going to be a Celtic country again? What injustices is it they're going to correct? Are we going to get reparations from the Vikings? Are we going to get reparations from Rome? Are we going to get reparations for the white slave trade that the Africans used to come up and steal people from the UK? Or is it just going to be part of your bullshit left-wing propaganda crap? I think it's the latter, and we're not interested. So you can't give money from people who didn't do the thing to people who didn't suffer the thing just for the sake of it and for your identity, racist identity politics. Left-wing identity policies. And you're even pandering to these groups, and they're still too intelligent not to vote for you. By your pandering, only because you're a doughball and living in London, is the fact that you're actually elected. You're not up to it. You could just get rid of the full front bench of Labour, nobody would miss them. There is now opportunity coming for a centrist Liberal party, not the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats, but for a classical Liberal party like, I think the Whigs were similar to that. They'll replace these characters because they're doughballs.
Referring to the Kashmiris as committing terrorist acts.
Yeah, but how are you going to fix the British economy, doughball?
I mean, it's more like acts of resistance, in my personal opinion. I think there should be a reference back on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why they're voting for you in the red wall.
Nothing good will come of Brexit.
Proud anti-racist. Remember, anti-racism is racism. Anti-fascist. So they're because they're communists. Remember, fascism is part in the socialist agenda, or the socialist part of the authoritarian socialist part of the spectrum as well. So the fascists had like 100,000 Jews in it. The fascists and National Socialism are two different ideologies. Giovanni Gentili was a socialist, and so was Mussolini, and so was Oswald in the UK. All fascists, but all part of the socialist agenda. But let's look at what the Marxists have done. The Marxists have killed 100 million people in more countries across the world than even the National Socialists did. Again, that's another socialist ideology. These are all part. I mean, look at this beta and trade unionist. All right, fantastic. How are you going to improve the Scottish economy?
It is a far-right project. Liverpool, Walton, CLP, the safest...
Team Corbyn, so obviously another Marxist.
Seat in the United Kingdom, 85.7% Labour.
And we are kicking the fascists out of Liverpool again and again and again.
We are not leaving. And Remainers, we are...
and actual fascists, I mean, I'm talking about proper. The most fascist thing in the UK just now is Islam. The most fascist thing, political ideology, don't forget Islam's a political ideology. Most fascist thing in the UK is Islam just now.
Socialists! To fight imperialism,
fight socialists, bring back, I don't know. So, I mean, we're looking at another Marxist here. If they're not content with 100 million people dying, obviously they put up a communist statue in Manchester to Engels, who advocated genocide against the Scots.
Truly defeat it, we must do so on a class basis, on the basis of socialist internationalism.
So don't forget, the postmodernists want to do it on race and gender and whatever else to do. So they've now become racist as well. So it's not just class, it's now racism, race, because they are actual racists, and gender and other things. So that's how they've actually changed it from the postmodernists. So she's probably an old school Marxist, whereas Nicola Sturgeon is probably a postmodernist Marxist. So because she's a bit of an anti-white racist herself.
And working class solidarity.
I stand before you as a trans woman, a lesbian,
just like me,
and a Pisces.
Sister.
I know, right? LGBT, why can't they have a better acronym than that?
The gays.
LGBTQ+.
I note that yesterday evening, one of the Fringe events was held by a transphobic hate group.
Delegates are being asked to vote for members of the National
I don't like that, obviously being a trans, super straight lesbian like myself.
Constitutional Committee, and there is no gender quota in that ballot. That is outrageous.
We must end capitalism, and we can only do that with a Labour government.
I think we must end corporatism. So I think because you don't understand the difference that's the issue. I think we have to end corporatism.
Led by Jeremy Corbyn. The last
who was a doughball.
Speaker was defamatory.
Multi-millionaire person of the people. Don't forget the socialists only want to empower themselves. So the people at the top, I mean, Steptoe's a multi-millionaire. What do you call him? Diane Abbott's probably a multi-millionaire. Wee Owen Jones, a millionaire. The all self-enrichment on the backs of the workers. These guys are probably some of these guys are workers, but certainly the people at the top of Labour are not part of the working class.
Towards Composite 17, and I know in law defamation,
and they all just sit in a wee bubble and talk to themselves, so they all think, oh yeah, that's great,
has a certain standing.
I'm sorry, is not a point of order. He wasn't defamatory, he just raised a different point of view.
I haven't seen a black man speaking today. I lift my hand, I wasn't there. We exist. It's the only thing I want to say. We do exist.
Well, I think that's quite revolutionary there. Black men do exist.
Delegate, thank you for your point of order. And as the first East Asian woman ever chairing conference, I understand the importance of representation.
There's tons of East Asians in East Asia. I don't know how many white people are running the political parties in East Asia as well, mind you, but I doubt very many.
Ours is a migrant nation.
Epidemic.
It's a Celtic nation, to be honest with you, buddy. The Celts were here first.
Of sexist and sexual bullying and harassment.
There's no way that this woman's ever been sexually bullied in her life with hair like that.
Harassment fueled by online porn.
Fueled by online porn.
Conference, the reason...
Now they don't want you to watch porn. They want to get in every aspect of your life just to annoy you.
This failure is down to one thing, capitalism. Capitalism is immoral. I second.
So the moral sentiment, remember that Adam Smith talked about the moral sentiment?
Because of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains!
Obviously, we've got Harry Potter here, fat Harry Potter, who's now an out-and-out communist, quoting Marx, I think it was, but he should have said jobs at the end, not chains. You've got nothing to lose but your jobs, especially if you vote for these loon balls. Look, he was giving a wee Nazi salute there. It just shows you, look, give a wee Nazi salute. Heil Hitler! So the only difference is the National Socialists were racist against the Jews, and certainly having that, and this wee, you just draw that's a wee moustache there, Heil Hitler, and these guys are racist against other white people. Look at that, you couldn't write that.
But if we don't pull together...
So this is how low the Labour Party, she is the personification of how low. And if you look at like Kimmy, conservative. I can never remember this girl's name for some reason. So Kimmy Badenoch. And this to me is more like the people of African origin that I know who are quite intelligent. So this lady's, and this just shows you the low standard when you compare this woman to this other woman based on their gender and ethnicity, which is what the Labour Party want to base everything on. This woman is just far better intellectually.
we are against is the teaching of contested political ideas as if they are...
So we Nippy wants to bring in critical race theory, Marxist theory, anti-white racist theory in Scotland.
It's a fact. We don't do this with communism, we don't do this with socialism, we don't do it with capitalism. And I want to speak about a dangerous trend in race relations that has come far too close to home to my life, and it is the promotion of critical race theory, an ideology that sees my blackness as victimhood and their whiteness as oppression. I want to be absolutely clear, this government stands unequivocally against critical race theory. Some schools have decided to openly support the anti-capitalist Black Lives Matter group, often fully aware that they have a statutory duty to be politically impartial. Black lives do matter, of course they do. But we know that the Black Lives Matter movement, capital BLM, is political. I know this because at the height of the protest, I have been told of white Black Lives Matter protesters calling, and I'm afraid I apologize for saying this word, calling a black armed police officer guarding Downing Street a That is why we do not endorse that movement on this side of the house. It is a political movement, and what would be nice would be for members on the opposite side to condemn many of the actions that we see this political movement instead of pretending that it is a completely wholesome anti-racist organisation. And
I'm under Antifa in America. I think 30 people were killed, and a number of them were of African-American descent as well. Nobody was caring about their lives. Nobody was actually mentioning them. I'll come to that later on.
There is a lot
before the last election in the United States.
Of pernicious stuff that is being pushed, and we stand against that. We do not want to see teachers teaching their white pupils about white privilege.
We Nippy does, Nicola Sturgeon does. Nicola Sturgeon wants to teach children in Scotland about white privilege.
And inherited racial guilt. And let me be clear, any school which teaches these elements of critical race...
They should sack the teacher. They should sack the teacher and ban them from teaching. That's what should happen. The fact that the Conservatives are not taking a strong enough government stance on this, and we Nippy's actually promoting it, just shows you where we are in Scotland.
Race theory as fact, or which promotes partisan political views such as defunding the police without offering a balanced treatment of opposing views.
I'm not sure if Sasha Johnson is now wanting to defund the police after the police catching the gentleman or the person who allegedly shot her.
Is breaking the law.
So let's go back to Doughball Labour Party.
If we don't get our together, Boris Johnson is going to...
You're not going to get your shit together, and you're going to all get sacked because you are all thick as pig shit. So that's my friends down at Fetus Eaters. Let's see if they've got any more for us. Let's see. They've got, the black flag of Islam.
So Muslim community, by the Human Rights Commission about being anti-Semites. And their response to this has been to kick themselves over being Islamophobes as well. So I thought we'd join in.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah.
So they got accused of anti-Semitism. And
obviously there's a large Muslim voting bloc in the Labour Party. So not only are they disgusting racist Marxists now, they're also Islamists. The GIMP Party, the globalist Islamo-Marxist Party.
So the current hoo-ha going around Jeremy. So this has completely fallen under the radar. So they released this report. It's labourmuslims.org, released a piece of research into Islamophobia within the Labour Party. And we'll just go over some basic statistics first, because it's...
But before we do, how popular is the Labour Party with British Muslims?
That's what I wanted to get into, because no one really knows about these sort of things. Like, there are a few non-governmental organisations, non-partisans that try this. Mm-hmm. But this is, my understanding, Labour Party statistics. So if we can get image 1 up.
Which explains why it's becoming increasingly anti-Semitic.
That gives you a graph of their view between Conservative, Labour and other for every religious group. And the two that stick out the most, obviously, is Judaism and Islam there. Islam being recorded as...
That's the Labour Party, this is the Conservative Party.
85% of Muslims vote for Labour.
And nearly 70% of Jews vote for the Conservatives.
I'm going to leave that there, but they're very interesting again from the guys down at the fetus eaters. Have they got... calling grooming gangs a myth.
Relating to the
So obviously in the UK, mass rapes of Indigenous white children by Muslim rape gangs is happening all over UK.
So there was a debate in Parliament about the Grooming gang petition, which was started a long time ago by Johnny over there.
Yeah. Jonathan Wong's a great guy, lovely fella.
Our own Jonathan Wong.
Yeah.
Vote. He'll be standing for Parliament. Vote right. Vote Wong.
And John went on Hard to Vote yesterday with Peter Markovena to talk about this.
Lovely fella, nice guy. Young Jonathan.
Big plug to Hard to Vote. I wasn't
good
my ear to the ground on this, so I managed to get the clips. Go and support them. That's John there, in case you don't know what he looks like. The one on the left. Anyway, so we'll just show the petition so people know, which is the next link.
Yeah.
So this is just the petition saying release the Grooming gang report in full. There was released.
It got 100,000 signatures really quickly as well.
Yeah, good job everyone who signed it.
Yeah, which is what you need to get the...
So obviously the Guerilla TV channel promoted this to stop the Muslim child rape gangs.
Parliament to debate it.
So some of it was released. It didn't seem to be
what was the date that it was created? Sorry, the petition.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Can we scroll down a bit, John? Because there's presumably right. So it's been over a year, or almost a year, for the debate to happen.
Yeah.
But okay, so it took about a year, right? Fine.
Just as fast as you'd expect. Yeah. So, and then we have a link to the debate, which is just a parliamentary website.
It's just children being raped.
Yeah, it's not that important.
It's not, not something you should fast track or anything.
And if you want to watch the full thing, it's there, but we just clipped it down because no one's got that time. And fair enough. So the response from this, I expect it to be Conservatives yet again saying that this is just far right nonsense, we're not going to go into it. Labour saying it's far right nonsense, we're not going to go into it. And then everyone just moves on. And surprisingly no, there was actually some good news out of this, which is the Conservatives are willing to accept what is reality and has been proven to be reality for
Thank
years.
God.
Unfortunately, Labour hasn't, but no change there.
So because Labour was basically promoting the Muslim rape gangs as well. I've learned nothing. Oh yeah, this is us. I was going for this one as well.
Tracks, trails, training, climbs.
Look at that image. Do you remember this?
So this is Sadiq Khan promoting a Marxist. You remember Wee Nippy is standing in front of a. Let's just get this set up. YouTube. Wee Nippy is standing in front of a Marxist symbolism. So. Oh, that's her slap my bitch up. So Wee Nippy, there she is in front of a Marxist symbol. Why is she standing in front of a communist symbol with a red top on? 100 million people have died under communism, Nippy. Why are you standing in front of that? So there we've got Sadiq Khan, the Islamist, who is putting up Marxist symbolism over London now.
Oh, it works.
100 million people have died under Marxism, so let's never let them forget.
He got a bunch of drones to make the BLM sign, and then there was a voiceover.
Which is just the communist sign, which we already know this. It's a Marxist sign, doesn't matter if it's black, it's still the underlying Marxist sign, which obviously Sadiq, the Islamist, finds acceptable.
What was it? This year, blah, 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 Black Lives Matter. And everyone clapped, because it's London. It's like, look, you are the one who pushes culture wars endlessly. And I'll the right turn around and be like, hey, their culture war stuff is all retarded. You're like, oh no, don't point that out. I don't want to fight culture wars. So
this actually ruined my New Year's Eve. I just saw this and it depressed me to the point where I was just like, I'm good.
Yeah, I think that's deliberately done.
Play.
Comrades.
BIM, comrades.
Transgender comrades. Trans comrades.
LGBT plus comrades.
LGBT plus community. LGBT plus young people.
LGBT plus people. LGBT plus people.
LGBTQ plus, LGBT plus pay gap, trans and non-binary people.
I'm sent here by my CLP to represent our Black, Asian, minority ethnic members. For Black, Asian and minority adults, Black, Asian and minority ethnic children.
This isn't the one. This is the same one. I think they did another one. Where's your other one, guys? Where is this? Come on.
So the first thing here is Andy No's tweet in which he's saying that he was right, he is right. So a lot of people were critical in a clip and then posting it up and you're like, I'm not sure.
No, me neither. Oh, come on, where is it? Oh, the corpse. Oh, there. I mean, this might be it.
That's 29. The corpse Labour Party, as I'm going to dub them, because I mean they are just a walking corpse at this point. I love Peter Hitchens always had this, where he's like the two main parties he describes it, the Tories and the Labour Party, were essentially like two corpses that had rigor mortis and were just keeping each other up with their own inadequacies, and eventually you just need one of them to collapse and then the whole system will. The Red Wall.
The Red Wall?
So this is meant to be the area of strong Labour voters, the heartland in which they could get solid Labour constituencies. And they're just like neck and
so
neck.
The Reform Party's down from UKIP, although UKIP's already still here. So let's...
Because it could be a case of lifelong Labour seats are going to flip, and we might see what's happened in past elections.
No, that's not it either. 2 weeks ago, is this
the breakdown from the Labour defeat. So we covered with Carl yesterday. Carl came in, especially from his holiday, just to laugh at Labour, because God, it was good, and well-deserved from the Labour Party getting
I don't know where that is.
Slaughtered. So
go and have a wee look at that as well. I can't find it. One more try. Where is this? Because he did something else. Oh, no, that's not it. They did another one about the Labour Party as well. And the Labour Party don't understand why nobody's voting for them. Absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's get rid of Nippy. Get rid of that. So, let's go back here. The election campaign started on the 25th of March 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic in Scotland, although Parliament would not be officially dissolved until the 5th of May. The day before the election, the main parties that ran for the election are the Scottish National Party, led by the Nicola Sturgeon, Scottish Conservatives by Douglas Ross, Scottish Labour by Anna Sawa, the Scottish Liberal Undemocratic Democrats by Wee Willie Rennie, and the Scottish Communist Marxist Green Party, led by Rees-Mogg and Lorna Slater. I don't know if she's part of the Clothing Empire. Of these five parties, two changed their leaders since 2016 election. Newer parties set up since that the last election include the UK Reform Party, led by Michelle Ballantyne, the Alba Party, led by Alex Salmond, and All for Unity. Obviously, Georgie Porgy's got his Workers of the World Unite stuff and All for Unity parties, so that was quite interesting. Well, so he's two-pronged approach, Georgie Porgy, obviously doing well with his podcast, obviously not being throttled like ours is. These parties only compete for seats on the regional list and all failed to win any seats. The election concluded with the SNP winning a fourth consecutive term and the government winning 64 seats. This was increase of one, so they didn't do. I think this is sort of the high watermark. I'll come on to show you about the million wasted votes there for two MSPs. Complete waste of time. The election concluded and now the SNP have got to kowtow to Moby and the absolute loonballs in the Green Party, and they've got to make a compact with them, so they'll have to kowtow to destroy the Scottish oil industry, which will in turn you produce plastics and things with oil as well. So but they're now, because there's a bunch of geniuses, going to destroy it and throw thousands of high-tech jobs off of Scotland to satisfy wee Nippy, the alleged lesbian, and Moby, obviously, I think he's gay as well. So we've got this, but no method of actually trying to increase the population. These parties only compete for seats on the regional list and all failed to win any. The election concluded with the SNP winning a fourth consecutive term in government, winning 64 seats. This was an increase of one, but fell one seat short of an overall majority. The SNP gained, so it's very, very difficult, even on the fact, I mean, the actual numbers that the SNP have got are huge, and it'll be very difficult for any political party to win a majority. I mean, the amount of people would have to vote on the second vote to actually get a majority is absolutely incredible. So one fell short. The SNP gained Edinburgh Central Ayr and East Lothian, as well as winning the largest share of the popular vote and largest number of constituency seats in the Scottish parliamentary election, 62. The Greens won 8 seats, their best result to date at a Scottish election, while the Conservatives retained second place with 31 seats. Had its worst ever result with 22 seats. Right, okay. So, the worst ever result for Labour Party. Worst ever, and only going down. They actually were at one point losing 3 seats. Remember, I said they were going to lose up to 5, and they were actually losing 3 seats at one part. The Labour Party are on a death spiral, a political death spiral, both in Scotland and all over the rest of the UK. They're going down the tubes faster than a turd. Let's see what Nigel. And Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin's a lovely fella. Glad he's off that Young Turks. He's certainly came into his own as well. So Nigel and Dave were having a chat.
I'm speaking.
Our purpose is people.
To have some common messaging in the United Kingdom, and that I think is a very inspiring message. But it needs a Republican.
So Nigel's over in America helping out with there's elections in 2022 where the Republican Party may win back the Senate and the House. So it'll be very interesting to see, obviously, with the potential of Donald Trump coming back to fight dopey Joe Biden the weekend at Bernie's president, and Kamala Harris. Biden's decline, cognitive decline, obvious cognitive decline. He's talking about people bouncing up and down his lap and weird stuff like that as well. He's talking something about a girl the other day there, who's, I think, a child, and he was saying, oh, you look 19, things like that as well. Very weird stuff as well. So Nigel's over there trying to boost the support for the Republican Party.
Party that's got a distinct, clear message as to how they're going to deal with the crisis. So they've got to get themselves organised. But with the right message, there are an awful lot of Democrat voters that will vote Republican next year.
There's a specific bit. We're going to watch a bit. We're going to watch a bit of this, and obviously see what's actually happening here with regards to what Dave's talking about, because there's a part on it he's the Nigel is talking about being a classical liberal as well, which I would sort of, I'll come back to what he says exactly and retort there.
British activist, commentator, former leader of the UK Independence Party, as well as the former leader of the Brexit Party, and now he's on tour right here in the US of A. Nigel Farage, I don't know how we haven't done this before. Finally, welcome to the Rubin Report.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Have you not got me on, Dave?
And I've come actually with a very optimistic message, because I know a lot of Conservatives here are really down at the moment. Down that borders are literally being crushed electorally week by week. And my message is, however bad it looks, actually, this administration are making some terrible mistakes. What is happening on the border effectively turns every state. I
mean, they're just as incompetent as Wee Nippy or Horsey Face in New Zealand or Turdo in Canada. They're all just the same globally shill, far left, intersectional woke diddies. Every one of these, and the sooner that they all go, the better. Including Merkel, who's an absolute doughball, isn't she? Doughball Merkel.
Into a border state. So my message is, don't be down, don't be mad. There's a big chance here for a massive victory in 2022 and an even bigger one in 2024. But the right in America needs to unite, needs to have some common messaging. Just one or two less egos around the place might be quite helpful. But look, if we could beat the global establishment and get Brexit back over the line, you can do it.
So I love the message, obviously. There's something kind of fun.
So Dave and I are probably, I don't think Nigel is a classical liberal. I think Dave is a classical liberal, like myself and Carol and the guys as well. But I don't know if Nigel is a classical liberal. My jury's out on that one. Nigel is so politically fluid that it's very difficult to actually say that he's ideologically consistent. To be brutally honest, but we'll see.
Funny, you're coming to America to bring less ego. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. But you're one of the things that I love about you, and we've gotten to know each other over the years a little bit. We've had a couple gin and tonics together once or twice. But you're the type of politician that actually does instead of just talks.
So Nigel, like Alex Salmond, probably one of the greatest politicians. In the UK, probably has had the most influence on British politics, like Alex Salmond as well. So both of which who are, regardless of their, have good personalities and foibles as well, but significant political hitters.
Can you talk a little bit about what that is like? Because I think most people see politicians at this point basically just as bureaucrats who pretty much just take their money and do nothing, or maybe lock them in their homes. But you actually make things happen, and that's got to be very different than most of the people that you're around often or have been around over the years.
So in June 99, against the flow, totally unpredicted, I found myself being elected as a member of the European Parliament, and everybody was shocked. Who is this guy? What's this new party? And I remember the next morning, the phone rang, and it was a guy who'd been a commentator and a satirist in Britain, a guy called Christopher Booker, very intelligent man. And Christopher said to me that morning, he said, Nigel, after 40 years of study, I can tell you, there are two types of people in politics. There are those who want to be someone, and there are those who want to do something. And make your mind up, young man. I was young then. He said, make your mind up, young man, which of those you want to be. And here's the point. He was absolutely right. The vast majority of people in politics are there for rank, title, position, status, and they'll sell their grandmothers to climb the greasy pole, because for them, it's all about career advancement. Then you get people in politics who are doing it out of genuine conviction because they believe the agenda they're pursuing is going to make their country better and the lives of their people better. And I personally couldn't give a damn about titles. People say, oh, you're not Lord Nigel, you're not Sir Nigel. I couldn't care less about any of that. I did this because I could see globalism building. Back in the 1990s, I could see bureaucracy was beginning to win over democracy, and I was determined to do something about it. So yeah, I'm a doer, I'm not here for the title.
Do you remember when you first saw it? When was the first moment that you saw something that really alarmed you?
All of it for the last 70 years.
The first big moment was in 1990 when the government pegged sterling against the basket of European currencies, effectively the Deutschmark. Now, anybody with any economic history knows all peg currency systems end in disaster. None of them through time ever succeed. And they'd done it because they wanted us to join what became the euro. And that was the first alarm bell that whatever they were telling the electorate come general election time, actually, they were literally selling off our country. And then there was a rebellion. In 1993, there was a rebellion. Backbench Conservatives rebelled over a new European treaty, the treaty that turned it from a European community into a European Union with a flag, an anthem, and all of those things. And I watched this rebellion. And right at the last minute, John Major, who was the Prime Minister, used a motion of confidence to get this treaty pushed through. And I couldn't believe it. I said, well, hang on, you've been telling me, guys, that if this treaty goes through, we lose our independence. And yet, when it came to it, you decided to put your career, you decided to put your party above the interests of the country. And I realized then that the so-called Tory Eurosceptics were frankly a bunch of chinless wonders.
So it sums up the Conservative Party as well. I don't think the Conservative Party are an actual Conservative Party.
Of losers. None of them have a stomach for the fight. And I said in 93, I'm going to do this. I don't care if people laugh at me. I don't care if I'm the only person that votes for me. I'm going to fight this and do this. as a matter of principle. And frankly, that moment spelt the next 27 years of my life.
Did you have any idea the opposition that you were going to come against? I mean, when I was in London last time, when I saw you, it was during the tour with Jordan Peterson, and it was in the middle of Brexit, but there was still a huge feeling like, maybe it's not going to happen, and maybe the bureaucrats still will take over or do some last-minute tricks. And then, of course, it was framed that all the people that supported it were racists and bigots and all the rest of it. But just the endless machine that we now all...
Yeah, it's called the media over here. We already saw it when they attack other media companies such as the Guerilla TV channel, Limited. And we saw that with the ITV, that they actually protect, the media is there to protect the establishment. That's why there's only 5 parties, all globalist shell parties, getting into the Scottish Parliament just now.
See, that has been so exposed.
And they'll call anybody any names, disgusting names, and the things. Their abuse doesn't count as abuse. They're allowed to be as abusive as they want.
In many ways, from an American perspective, thanks to Donald Trump, was so exposed. Did you realize how crazy that machine was going to be and what it was?
Yeah, I already knew how crazy it was going to be. I'm there to expose them. I'm there to shine the light at them while they shine the light at me, which is that's what I'm here to do. We will make it even tougher for them as well.
It's going to do to you and your supporters?
Gandhi, of course, fought the campaign for India to leave the British Empire and to get its independence. And Gandhi once said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they attack you, and then you win. And I went through every one of those 4 stages. In the beginning, I was being ignored completely. When they couldn't ignore me, I think I was the most cartooned, the most lampooned person on comedy shows. It was as if I was like the sort of patron saint of lost causes. And then, the moment that it really changed was in 2004, 8 and then 10 former communist countries joined the European Union with total rights of free movement. And this led to millions of people coming into the United Kingdom. It was too much, too quickly, it was out of control. And that was the moment when I linked the immigration issue with the sovereignty issue, the independence issue. And that was the moment that the establishment turned on me. And they spent basically the next 15 years trying to tell anyone that would listen that I was a racist, leading a dark, dangerous movement.
Oh, see, they call them a racist. That's their only word, because they don't want to actually debate the issues. They just want to shut you down by using this made-up Marxist, not Marx Trotskyist word, which was in the invented, or certainly, if it wasn't invented, it was certainly publicised the most by Trotsky. So they're using Marxist word to shut down any debate if you don't agree with the globalist agenda. And they'll just use this made-up word, which is a trigger word in most people's minds, but the reason is to shut down actual debate on issues by just using this word over and over again, like we saw with Peter the Plonker Smith.
Back to the 1930s. I mean, nothing could have been further from the truth. That is what they tried to do. And I have to tell you, in all honesty, if I'd known just how horrible my life was going to be, I don't know whether I would have done it. I finished up having to live with protection around the clock. If you went out somewhere, people threw things at you. And this was the media. This was mainstream media working with big global corporations, trying to maintain their own self-interest. But in the end, you can keep pushing accusations against somebody, but if you can't prove it, it's a little bit like crying wolf. And in the end, people saw through it. But yeah, it was tough, it was hard. And then, I was perhaps guilty of some naivety, because on the 23rd of June, 2016, that moment where we've won, and all the parties promised that they would honour the result. And then we saw
that the underlying veil was lifted up, and these were all just globalist shell parties, including the Tories.
A 3-year campaign. As you say, we were told we didn't know what we voted for. We were told property prices would collapse. We were told millions of jobs would be lost. We were told foreign direct investment from America and elsewhere would dry up. We were even told, brace yourself for this one, we were even told there would be an outbreak of super gonorrhea in the country because the drug that was used to treat it came from Germany, and we wouldn't even get supplies of drugs. I mean, there is no depth to which these people,
the globalists,
did not sink. But the resolve of the British people did not budge 1 inch. And I believe there is a parallel. I don't believe those 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump have changed their mind. In fact, I think in many ways, probably in their hearts, they feel it even more strongly. And that's why I'm on this tour, to spread that message. A message of optimism, a message that you can beat the odds. You really can.
I know you're a pro because you just did the exact transition I was going for, because there are so many parallels to what's happening in America right now.
Yes, there is. It's basically the same mob. They're both controlled. We've got controlled parties by the globalist establishment. That's what's happening.
And everything that you just described that the UK has been going through for, really the last 20 years. Are you sort of surprised that that conservatives or right-leaning people or anyone that cares about that flag that's right behind you, that everyone seems a little bit lost right now, that there really is
It's been deliberately done by Marxists who are in your universities teaching children about or how to be good Marxist allies to Marxism that's now infiltrating your corporations. So I would suggest that but obviously Dopey Joe, Weekend at Bernie's president, is not going to do anything because he's getting 2 bags from the Chinese. And obviously the big tech in California covered that up as well, and as did the pretty much the media in the United States, who are all working hand in glove. So it's not just one thing. There's many things going on. You should start getting rid of your Marxist professors.
Shell shock situation since, really, I think it started probably on January 6th, but then once Biden took over, and that he's been so much further to the left than most people thought. Not that I thought, but that the pundit class thought.
Yeah, look, I think, obviously, the election result was a shock. The events of January the 6th were unsavory. There's no other way of putting it. And it's been difficult. It's been very, very difficult. And yes, as you say, Biden being pulled to the left, Biden, dropping references to God, which I think shocked
just this morning,
many tens of millions of Americans. I understand why people feel depressed and down, but look, I was getting this in 2018.
I'm sorry for using so much of this. I'm trying to find the specific one. I don't know where it is.
In the UK, into 2019. Everyone said to me, Nigel, it's done, it's finished, it's not going to happen. And I kept saying to them, no, you are letting down. Not to get prepared and start planning right now.
When you decided to do this tour, were you sort of...
I came in 2016, Trump put me on a stage with him in Jackson. The point is this. If we with Brexit, if America falls, so I don't want America to fall. Speaking to grassroots events, trying to...
The kid, I don't know if you know the phrase black pill, but the kids are calling this black pill when you're red pilled, meaning you've woken up to all of this. And then I know you get that one. But then the black pill is, but now the whole system is so corrupt and so against us that you just sort of check out. So you're kind of waking them up from that, because that's the path you don't want everybody to go down. That's what I'm trying to do as well.
Yeah, and that's 1.5 million people in Scotland that didn't vote. That would have had a massive impact in the Scottish elections if you can go down and put an X in the box.
Rise, entrepreneur. Take that first step towards freedom. There's an industry that needs this.
Yeah, and the thing about Brexit was,
and don't forget the Marxists are trying to demoralise you.
A long campaign. It took, as I said, 27 years of my life. But the thing that I was able to do, David, was to build a grassroots army. A grassroots army which I dubbed the People's Army. And they were proud to serve in the People's Army, proud to give of their time, their money, their love.
And so I wasn't a member of UKIP or anything. I was only a member of the Brexit Party, and obviously stood for it until obviously Fat Andy did whatever he was going to do. So, yeah.
It doesn't matter how young you are, how old you are. If you want to get involved, you can all do something. You can put things through doors. You can make telephone calls. And that's why Freedom Works, which is a non-party affiliated grassroots conservative organisation. For me, that's the perfect fit. And all these men and women who are going to be running next year, for seats, they need their own People's Army. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And as I say, thus far, I think I'm making, it may not be huge, but I feel I can make a bit of a difference.
So I think people get the Brexit analogy to the American experience. Can you talk a little bit about what happened to the left in the UK as well? Because your Labour Party really went bananas under...
Yeah, they suck, Dave. They suck.
Corbyn, and sort of became what is so obvious to me is happening right now to our Democratic Party.
100%.
So
what you need to do is jettison them, get rid of them. The Democratic Party, even the corporatist Democrats, will go the same way as the Labour Party.
The British Labour Party, has its roots way back to 1900. It was a working class movement. It was,
but not now. Now it's a middle class movement for the Wokarati.
Quite strongly
the Gimp Party.
Methodist as well. Sort of low church, high church for the Tories, low church for Labour was kind of how it was. And it was genuinely a working class movement.
Now, I'm from the working class. My great-grandfather was a plater in Glasgow. Both my grandparents were textile workers. My great-grandfather was a trade unionist and a gang leader. And both my grandparents were, I think, shop stewards in Dax and Larkhall. So I come from a working class background. I would never ever vote for the Labour Party ever again, or any left wing. I would only vote for a classical liberal. Now that I know, which I didn't know before, I was a classical liberal or a libertarian liberalist, that I would only really vote for classical liberals, although I have been in other parties. It took me a while to actually realise what and where I was in the political spectrum.
Patriotic.
So I'm basically a centrist, but a libertarian centrist, not an authoritarian centrist, which is why I would never vote for the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats.
Working class movement. The Labour Party, whatever socialist policies they brought in post-1945, they believed in the country. Clement Attlee, who was the Prime Minister that brought in the welfare state, on his door it said Major Clement Attlee. He was proud of the First World War service that he'd given. And what has happened to the Labour Party is it's become a party of the globalist metropolitan elite. It's become a party...
Remember I said that?
...of the upper middle classes, people born into relative...
Like Anasawa.
Sort of champagne socialists, I guess.
Anasawa, Keir Starmer.
Is the kind of phrase that we would use. And their globalist view means they're ashamed of saying anything vaguely patriotic. They wouldn't
screw them.
Be seen dead.
But Wee Nippy's the same, so let's not think that Wee Nippy's not the same.
Union Jack or an English cross of St George, because they don't like any of this symbolism. And on Brexit, they have completely and utterly, turned their back on Brexit in every way. They lost a special election, a by-election in the north of England. It had been a Labour seat forever. They pick someone to stand who thinks we should rejoin the European Union. They just don't get it.
How disrespectful. No wonder they lost Hartlepool.
But the key, and this is where I think the cross...
But this is what they do. If you look at the Labour front bench, it's all fully globalists. There's all shell globalist rejoiners, second votes, and that's why they lost the red wall. They are only interested in their own wee GIMP parties, globalist Islamo-Marxist party. That's the only thing that the Labour Party stands for now.
So it could be very interesting. The key is this. When UKIP started to pick up millions of votes, it wasn't just middle-class Conservatives voting for Nigel Farage. No, it was patriotic, working-class people living in the north of England, a lot of them...
they all love Nigel.
The north of England, and people who believed that mass, uncontrolled immigration was driving down their wages, changing their communities beyond all recognition. And that doesn't make these people racist. It makes them want to keep their towns, their communities, their families in some shape that is recognisable. And they were the people that came to me. And, I tell you something, the Labour Party at the centre basically thinks we're all global citizens, we can all go wherever they want. So Labour has lost its voters on Brexit, it's lost its voters on open borders. It scared its voters when Jeremy Corbyn, who was pretty much
and they're going to lose another by-election.
Semite as well, was its leader. And the Labour vote
Did
now
you hear
is
that?
collapsing. Labour has lost its voters on Brexit. It's lost its voters on open borders. It scared its voters when Jeremy Corbyn, who was pretty much an anti-Semite as well.
So, but obviously Anis Sawa is a Muslim and anti-Semitic as well for being part of Islam is very much anti-Semitic. They kicked out all the Jews out of every country. I think the Yemen has just kicked out the last of the Jews out of Yemen as well.
Was its leader. And the Labour vote now is collapsing.
I would have said that the Quran was more anti-Semitic than Mein Kampf. So
look at what's happening on the border. I'll bet you, if we had dinner tonight with AOC, now that sounds pretty unlikely, David, I know, but
probably not happening.
But you're probably not happening. But if we
because they only want to talk amongst themselves, the left, because they know their arguments are stupid.
They would not be in the least bit concerned about what's happening down on the border. In fact, we understand some of the people that come are given Kamala Harris books to read. I mean, you can't believe it, but it's happening. They don't think it matters. And I think that the risk for the Democrats is they fall as out of touch with people living in the Midwest, living wherever else it is in this country. Open door immigration, got Brexit over the line, and has destroyed socialism in the United Kingdom. And that, I think, is a very inspiring message. But it needs a Republican Party that's got to...
And I don't think Labour have finished their decline. If the polls for the Westminster vote get replicated at the next election under Bojo, the Labour Party will be pretty much destroyed. They could be surpassed by another political party, like a Liberal Party, a proper classical Liberal Party. They may be overtaken, and they might see a classical Liberal Party as more of a reflection of small C Conservatives' working class.
Distinct, clear message as to how they're going to deal with the crisis. So they've got to get themselves organised. But with the right message, there are an awful lot of Democrat voters that will vote Republican next year.
Do you think there's a fundamental reason that the left tends to always double down instead of saying, oh, something has changed here and maybe we need to take a look in the mirror? But
yeah, it's a political death spiral, Dave.
Instead, they always seem to go to their most extreme.
Well, I think you have to understand who's driving the left. And frankly, follow the money is very good advice for most things in life. And if you look at the kind of causes that the Soroses and others back,
the globalists,
they are not going to change their view one little bit. These are big, powerful organisations that effectively want us to finish up with one world government and one world people. It's an updated...
And one world currency, which is more from the control. And don't forget, wee Nippy, the Scottish nationalist, is wanting to import our rules from the UN, unelected UN. God knows why, because obviously she's a globalist shill. She wants to join the undemocratic EU with 28 unelected commissioners dictating her legislation. Very nationalist of her, but just leave the rest of the UK. I prefer to stay with the UK, not be part of unelected quangos where you don't have any say of the legislation that's been brought in. But the five main political parties, which I'll come on to in a minute, are all globalist shell parties. So they're all shelling for the globalists.
In form of the old Marxist theory. It's never ever worked. It never ever will work.
So that's obviously with the Black Lives Matter crap and players in Scotland bending the knee over something that wasn't about us. I can understand the protest against authoritarianism and the extent of authoritarianism through the police force on the populace. And I would have been totally on board with that, but they racialised it, and then they racialised it, and rather than actually attacking authoritarianism over the individual's human rights, where we could all get on board, they then racialised it and said it was racial, which it wasn't proven in the court. There was anything racial about it. And then they pushed it, the Marxists pushed it, and they confronted the racist Marxist BLM, postmodernist Marxist racist BLM.
And frankly, I think the elected politicians, in most cases, aren't much more than pawns in that game.
Which is what wee Nippy is. She's absolutely doolally.
They are being used. They are being directed.
Wee Nippy's already signs up to the Council of Foreign Relations. She went over and paid her homage over there, which is a globalist shill entity, non-governmental entity.
They're not thinking freely. So all the influence on them tell them, no, don't worry, even if there is some short-term difficulty, because you're doing the right thing.
By selling us out to an undemocratic, unelected international cabal.
And for them, of course, the right thing, the kick they get is they feel morally superior. They actually think they're...
Although, slam a bitch up, Nick.
Better people than we are. But none of that works when you go out to a good, ordinary, decent folk who work hard, bring up their families, and Reagan was very good at this, very good at getting Democrats to vote.
Is he going to run? Does he, what I've been trying to tell
Democrats to vote Republican? Trump has been very good. And there is a kind of a realignment, I think, going on within American politics, and I think the opportunity that it provides for 2022 is simply enormous.
Where do you think Trump fits into that? Because that seems...
Well, if he's in good health, I would definitely run. And the other fella from Texas seems like a great vice president on the back of that. I think that would be a real dynamite ticket.
To be the outlier at the moment, it's like, is he going to run? Does he, what I've been trying to tell people is, to me, it seems like the best thing he could do is basically be the outsider taking the fire. And then you get a guy like DeSantis to just run right through. Well,
DeSantis, I would get DeSantis on as vice president. If DeSantis is probably young enough that he could eventually become president if he does a good job as vice president at a later date. So he might be the guy for after 4 years, so 2028 or something like that. So he might get a good run if he becomes a good vice president for the 4 years. So that would be probably a dream ticket, obviously. Massive for the Hispanic and other minorities. Obviously, Kamala Harris, who's not very good. Apparently, this guy, DeSantis, is competent as well, or the guys from Florida as well.
It seems to make sense to me, but, Trump obviously does whatever Trump thinks is best.
Yeah, I have spent some time with him on this trip, and that's a meeting of friends, basically. We have become friends. I said, this is what I said to him. Okay, I won't say what he said, but this is what I said to him. I said, look, we've got the external threat of the Chinese Communist Party getting more and more aggressive, and who's to say in Taiwan or elsewhere what might occur.
You just don't know how infiltrated our political class, like the Moby and the Marxist, or the SNP with their Marxist agenda, or the Labour Party with their Marxist agenda. You just don't know how infiltrated the Chinese Communist Party have actually gone into British politics. Or even the Tories.
For the course of the next few years. We've got the internal threat, which of course is cancel culture, and the threats that represents to free speech and everything else.
Well, as you all know, I've been cancelled as well. The Guerilla TV channel has just been cancelled on Twitter, and I believe that it's from our political class through California that they're actually doing this, but we'll soon find that out. The more that the Lib Lab Con Party, the SNP Greens get defeated and more libertarian parties come in, which we'll cover in a minute, the greater it'll be.
And I said to him, I don't see anybody who's got the courage or the charisma to fight those things. Now,
I would get the other guy from Texas on as the vice president. I think that would make a lot of sense. That would certainly be good for the Hispanic vote as well in America, which is massive as well.
Somebody else comes along who's got the big charisma that can do the job.
We'll give that other guy a lead-in time and a greater deal of publicity for him to run as the president in the future.
That can rally people in those working class communities to go out and maybe for the first time vote Republican. If that person comes along, then fine. But you know something? Donald Trump, people like him, don't come along very often. I mean, the guy has got an incredible animal magnetism.
And they're now trying to persecute him. They're obviously these disgusting. They're going to get it back, but these people who are persecuting other people, they'll reap the reward.
And he's shown more courage as a leader than any global leader I've seen in my lifetime. That guy was under relentless assault from day one. Just as they tried to stop Brexit, they tried to delegitimize him, and it never stopped. And of course, if he'd eased back on his policies, they would have eased back on the pressure, but he didn't. He's got the courage of a lion. Now look, he's got his faults. Of course he has. We've all got our faults. But in his heart, does he, and with his instincts, does he stand for the right things? I truly believe that he does. So, let's see what happens, as the next couple of years roll out. But do you know what? When I saw him, he's lost a lot of weight in a position of power within he was. But when he said, I want my 4 children to be judged, whether it was whatever else it may be, and that is disastrous. That is destructive. That is the real racism.
Oh.
And I really mean that.
And I'm thinking, am I going to see these racists here or something like that? And it's the happiest, most joyful people who, in many cases, are not political at all. They're just there because they want to express some level of freedom, something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this has been a constant attempt for the left to tarnish us with this racism word, and it just doesn't work anymore. The real racists are actually
are the anti-racists and the racist Marxists who hate white people like me and Ippy.
Behind Black Lives Matter. And I really mean that.
That's right. We've already just seen it with Sasha Johnston.
When Martin Luther King said in that amazing speech, and what an orator the guy was, but when he said, I want my 4 children to be judged, not for the...
And it's liberalism to judge people not based on arbitrary characteristics, but on what they're all about.
Colour of their skin, but by the content of their character. And now what's happening through BLM and elsewhere is we are dividing people up into different groups, dividing them up on the grounds of race, ethnicity, gender, whatever.
To destroy the capitalist structure in favour of Marxism that's never worked and led to 100 million deaths.
Whatever else it may be. And that is disastrous. That is destructive. That is the real racism. And I loathe it. And I want to live in a country where everybody is treated exactly the same. Because if you start giving special privileges to certain groups, you then automatically...
Hamza Useless has done under the hate speech bill.
Alienate other groups who feel left out. A free, fair society would have equality of opportunity for all. And of course, I condemn and loathe racism. And yes, there is a fringe on the extreme right who
and on the left, Nigel, this is bad politics. You're falling into what the media have dubbed the far right. Racism and ethno-nationalism is in every part of the political compass. The left, we've already seen that the anti-racist is a racist organisation, that's on the left. National Socialism, which was racist, is on the left because it believes in race, whereas I don't believe in race. I don't believe other people who don't look like me are a different race. So you keep saying about the far right, but these are actually on the left, Nigel, and you're getting tied into them saying things are far right, where they're not. They're actually on the authoritarian left. The left to right is about economics, so the communist and the socialist economics are on the left, and then it goes to the most capitalist on the right. Ethno-nationalism, nationalism is not a left and right issue. It's in all 4 parts of the political spectrum, as is globalism, and that's the issue.
I think we should simply even have nothing to do with whatsoever.
Well, but the racist Marxists are in power just now. The anti-white racist Marxists, and you're obviously going to, if you're saying, I'm going to give special privilege to these groups, you're going to get inevitably organisations, whether it be national socialist organisations on the far left, or nationalist capitalist things on the far right, ethno-nationalists who say, well, why should in my country where we built it up, I get treated like a second-class citizen because of the anti-racist Marxists? And you're going to get that. You're going to get political parties. There's the Black Lives Matter racist Marxist party being able to set up. Jada Francis was denied by the Electoral Commission And I don't know if Jada Francis is an ethnic nationalist. I know they're strongly anti-Islamic, and anybody who's not an authoritarian would be any libertarian should be anti-Islamic, because it's an authoritarian political ideology like the rest, like communism, like fascism, like National Socialism. All authoritarian ideologies should be anti all of these ideologies if you're a libertarian. So, bad political science there, Nigel.
But you're quite right. You know, whether it was my UKIP supporters, my Brexit Party supporters, Trump supporters at the rallies, these are very, very good, decent people. And the more mainstream media, you know, or Hillary Clinton point fingers at them and call them deplorable or ignorant or stupid, the greater their resolve to fight back.
What do you make about how the BLM movement, some of the Antifa stuff, that now that is being exported? I mean, you guys are
officers taking the knee in the streets.
And your police officers don't even have guns.
They don't, on both sides of the pond, to see big corporations, you know, trying to say wonderful things about them. I even saw Marxist order to take its place.
It's quite incredible that organisations are supporting Marxism. You just wonder how much the globalists control the underlying corporations as well. And they're actually supporting. I mean, the Marxists have to be held accountable for the 100 million people that have died already. What's the problem with National Socialism? So 6 million people died. Is that the problem with National Socialism? So what's the problem with Marxism? 100 million people have died in more countries than National Socialism. Not that I'm advocating for National Socialism. But if the problem is people's deaths, then Marxism is way ahead of National Socialism even. It just shows you what the socialists want to do. Revolution.
That is what they're doing. They are trying to destroy us. And yet, I've been horrified on both sides of the pond to see big corporations, you know, trying to say wonderful things about them. I even saw St. John's Church opposite the White House. One of the things that has changed politics in the United Kingdom has been postal voting, early mail-out voting. We've seen it abused again and again and again. There is no country in which this is safe, and I was trying.
Yeah, and we have to, in Scotland as well as further afield, actually start to get postal reform and get people who have got IDs and people that turn up. I mean, 37% of the Scottish electorate didn't turn up to actually vote.
Toward America this time last year, that if you went down this route, you know, the left will always win at this. Because you see, if you think you're morally superior, cheating is quite an easy thing to do. Whereas our side won't cheat. And
how can they be morally superior if they killed 100 million people?
And I'm pleased to say that, really. But you know, you're never going to win. The one country that's got this right is France. Now, the French don't get much right, in my opinion. But the one thing they've got right, they've seen how open postal voting is to fraud, intimidation.
A really great interview with Dave Rubin and Nigel.
And abuse, and they banned it completely.
Sorry for using so much of it, Dave.
So do you know what they do in France? If you want to vote in France, I'll tell you what happens. You go along to the local hall, you show your identification, you're given a piece of paper, you go into a polling booth, in secrecy, you put a cross.
And that's what should happen.
Next to the candidate or party you prefer. And after that, there are no voting machines used. There's no need for those. They're manually counted, they're put in piles and totaled up. And that is free and open democracy. There's a big lesson we can learn from it. Now, what Khan's got going for him in London is they've signed up vast numbers.
From a liberal.
And I know that in open democracy, there's a big lesson we can learn from it. Now, what Khan's got going for him in London is they've signed up vast numbers of the Muslim population to these postal votes. And I know that in those communities, you know, the women are signed up for postal votes, but do you actually think they ever get the chance to exercise that? Of course they don't. I once saw a vote box being emptied onto a table at a count in a place called Oldham in the north of England, and unbelievably, of the 1,000 or so ballots that were in that box, the percentage that were voting for Labour was 100.
Yeah, I mean, Bojo should be bringing in reform, scrapping the postal votes, and bringing in an idea. They've done correctly for the ID, but they should be scrapping postal votes. Can you imagine the devastation that would happen with Labour if they had to actually get the votes to vote in person? That would be devastating for Labour, even more so than what's actually going to happen with them.
That is literally impossible. So, that is what keeping Sadiq Khan holding on in London, is the power of that postal vote. But even in London, which has been the great Labour stronghold, even there, the party is now is seriously on the
What do you think of my friend Lawrence Fox? Do you think he has a chance to actually, from a liberal, a true liberal perspective?
So, now, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be another libertarian party. I don't know if Nigel is actually a classical liberal. I don't know that. He's certainly sound on a lot of issues, but he flip-flops. He's not ideologically consistent on this, which is concerning for me. He's a great guy, I love him. I'm not decrying Nigel. I think he's done a great job, but I'm talking about from a purely political science point of view. So Lawrence, if I was Lawrence just now, I would just join the UK Reform Party. It's going to be pointless and work with Tim Rice just now, but we're going to set up an actual classical liberal party in the UK, and that's going to be happening very soon. And I'm going to come on. This is why I wanted to do this first before I come on to the issues with the political parties in Scotland. And there's too many, and I think there needs to be some sort of rationalisation.
Think he has a chance to fight off the progressive movement?
Lawrence, he didn't do badly, but he didn't do great as well. But there is pointless having a renew and a reclaim and blah, 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 if they're all basically saying the same thing. They might as well be all... And Tim Rice should promote other people who are competent. There are a lot of intelligent people, and promote them to speak in Tim's place so that he can actually promote a diversity of people rather than him always being the go-to guy for interviews. If he promotes other people, that will get the party a greater diversity. Obviously, Nigel was always a figurehead of the whether it be UKIP or the Brexit Party, but it would be beneficial if we saw a diversity of people that were actually like Yusuf David as well. He was hilarious and brilliant. He was at the Count Dankula comedy show. Also stood against Jeremy Corbyn. He would be a great person to actually have to speak and hearing other people in the media.
Onslaught?
Look, I admire Lawrence. I like Lawrence. I mean, he's a great guy. And the next time you're in London, we'll go out together. He is a great guy to be with. Starting new political movements from scratch.
You know a little something about it.
I mean, Nigel has done the most to overturn. If Nigel was getting there with the UKIP party, but there needs to be a consistency. And there has to be, you have to fight everything, every battle needs to be fought, and you need to keep going and keep going and keep going until you actually get up there. And I'm going to explain to this in a minute what's happening in Scotland in a second in relation to this.
I mean, it's done, it took me so many years to get UKIP set up. And in the end, we had 400 chapters around the country, millions of supporters, but it doesn't happen overnight. Now, the things that Lawrence is battling for are fundamentally important issues. It is about the relationship.
But why does he not just join UK Reform Party? What is the point in him fighting and thinking? Why do they not just all join together? It's pointless having all these different parties. Pointless.
The individual and the state, and this is something that we've always prided ourselves on. Frankly, ever since Magna Carta, but going all through the years, we've been the freest of all European countries. In fact, the freest of all the English-speaking world. We've never had to have ID cards or any of these things.
Which is coming in, the new vax, the Tories are going to bring through the fact that you can't travel without this new, if you're not taking the jab, to make it in. There's other things as well that are come through that are anti-liberal as well.
Now with COVID, we've seen those liberties stripped away in the most remarkable and very hasty fashion. So, Lawrence, in terms of making the arguments, he's in the right place. I wish him well, but if I'm being honest with you, it's going to take a lot of years to build a movement that's big enough to be.
Do you make a distinction at this point between someone that would say they're an old school liberal and a
classical liberal?
Conservative? Does that even, is there any distinction worth mentioning at this point?
Yeah, there is, Dave. There is a difference between classical liberalism and conservatism, especially in the UK. We have a corporatist, we've got a globalist shill or subgroups within the Conservative Party who are corporatists. And they are not libertarian liberals, which is what you're talking about, classical liberals, libertarian liberals. And these are in two different parts of the political spectrum. The Conservatives are only interested in their own thing and want to control the rest, whereas a proper libertarian liberal would not want to control and wants capitalism, not corporatism, which is what the left are actually complaining about, is the corporatism from the Conservative Party. So I hope that sort of explains that.
Well, I mean, the funny thing, isn't it? You know, I mean, if you'd said to me 20 years ago, Nigel, where are you on the left-right spectrum, I'd have called myself a Gladstonian liberal.
Which is probably like the classical liberal, which is where this is why there will be a political party that is a classical liberal party coming.
You know, Gladstone was a liberal prime minister back in...
But not part of the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats who are just a corporatist shell party.
Back in the 19th century, but one who believed in freedom of the individual.
Globalist corporatist shell party.
Believed in the country.
A JFK Democrat from our perspective, basically.
Yeah.
Probably slightly more to the right, but yeah, along those lines.
I have to say, I've stopped using the word.
This is where I had to go 35 minutes into this, but this is where I was wanting to get on the actual to speak about.
You know, if you go to the Oxford Union,
and this is, I agree with Nigel here, and this is what Carol, who I respect greatly, talks. We talk at sort of a high political level, where we understand the theory. However, your average guy in the street, if you say, "Oh, I'm a classical liberal," will think about the Liberal Democrats and think, "Oh, I'm not really keen on them," and neither am I. So I totally agree. But they don't. The average individual, which Nigel's going to allude to, and this is why I wanted to get into this, does not understand what classical liberal means. It's not that they can't understand. It's probably because they're not really that quasi interested in politics and don't understand where it is in the political spectrum. And the left can then just smear anybody as far right or racist or whatever buzzword that they've used to close down the actual understanding and ability for the populace to understand what this is. So Nigel's going to say something, and I do agree with him up to a point, but I think it's important that we actually start to understand what a classical liberalism, like Adam Smith and Hume and the Scottish Enlightenment, actually is.
And debate with some of the brightest students in the world.
So let me just go back here.
You know, I mean, if you'd said to me 20 years ago, Nigel, where are you on the left-right spectrum, I'd have called myself a Gladstonian liberal. You know, Gladstone was a
libertarian liberal
minister back in the 19th century, but one who believed in freedom of the individual, believed in the country.
A JFK,
which is where I am as well.
Democrat from our perspective, basically.
Yeah. I have to say, I've stopped using the word. Classical liberalism. You know, if you go to the Oxford Union, and debate with some of the brightest students in the world, maybe there you can talk about classical liberalism.
Yeah, because obviously the average person will understand it if they see it in practice, but if to actually say classical liberalism, they have just got this dichotomy of, well, you're voting Conservative or Labour. That's not the choice. That's a very narrow political choice. especially if it's a social democrat and a Christian democrat leading it. It's basically, these are authoritarian liberals, or just like the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats. These all represent moderately authoritarian liberalism, not classical liberalism. There may be individuals within the Conservative Party and maybe some social democrats who are classical liberals, but the people in these, or in Parliament just now, there's very few who would actually be described as a classical liberal. Even Jacob Rees-Mogg, Big Harry Potter, is not I would say he is liberal, and he is slightly libertarian, but I think he's sort of, and maybe has to play that, going from slightly libertarian liberal to conservative, and he has to bounce about there, but there's no ideological consistency there as well, because he is slightly conservative as well, as we can see, because he's out of the 1800s.
If you try and talk about classical liberalism to anybody else, they sort of, if they're conservative,
glaze over,
just go mad because the word liberal now means illiberal.
Yeah, because of the authoritarian, libertarian liberals. But the Conservative Party have got a cheek as well. They're in the same part of the authoritarian liberal spectrum as also the Social Democrats as well.
The Liberals want to ban everything. The Liberals want to control.
Which is not liberal at all. So these people are not liberals.
Everything. The Liberals don't even believe in free speech. So yeah, classical liberalism, I'm afraid, is only for the debating chamber.
I get it. I wrote a book defending it, but
I think if you get a political party advocating it properly, it'll come back, because people will see it and understand it, how it differentiates itself from the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats.
I hear you. You mentioned the lockdowns. You've had some difference of opinion with Boris Johnson on this. Where are you guys at with lockdowns right now?
That was all I was wanting to show. I actually finally got there a lot longer than it took. What are you guys saying? Hello there. Hi there, Terry Ann, good to see you. Hi Maria, how you doing? I want to remain part of the union. The only thing I want, freedom from what sitting in Holyrood under the guise of the Parliament. They all want. They are all anti-Semitic. Yeah, and there's a lot of hatred towards the Jews just now. Burning cities and brown shirts. Yeah, a lot of that was going on. Hi there, hi Bernadette, how you doing? Long time. I've been hiding. Nigel ain't racist. No, Nigel is not racist. But they just call anybody racist. It's not about whether or not. I've got Telegram. You can get the Guerilla TV channel on Telegram. I also put up something in BitChute as well. If you want to go over to BitChute, there'll be other people who are. You'll need to start moving to other things. I'm getting throttled on YouTube just now. They've not monetized the channel. They're just doing some terrible things as usual with me. So they don't like classical liberals because it affects their Marxist agenda. So let's go back to this. This is what we're here for anyway. So Labour is crashing down 22 seats. We've only got one elected MP in Scotland. We only could get 2 MSPs elected first past the post. They were down almost 3 seats in Scotland. I think they pulled back one for some reason in the regional list because they can't get anybody elected first past the post. Labour are shrinking. They are finished, I think, just now in Scotland. And the lowest share of the vote. So Labour had the worst ever result with 22 seats. The worst ever result with 22 seats. And the lowest share of the vote in both constituency and list votes for either Westminster or Holyrood since 1910. 1910. So the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats won 4 votes. So these are not classical liberals, the Liberal Democrats. These are corporatist globalists. Shill party, they're not, and they do not represent liberalism. And that's why they're going down. They've lost a seat as well. They're down to 4 seats. The Labour Party and the Liberals are holding their annual conference in a phone box because nobody is voting for them. The worst showing at Holyrood election to date. So the Liberal Democrats only won 4 seats. Their worst showing at Holyrood elections to date. So there is a massive space for these new up-and-coming parties to smash into Holyrood and move forward. So there's a lot of people I really like in these smaller parties as well. On a personal level, I like people in the larger parties as well. Although I slag off a lot of these people on a one-to-one basis, I actually really like them. And I don't think they're bad people, although I do slag them off. I just find it funny. I slag off everybody because it's funny. So, and also sets the wee bedwetters off as well. So, I do find these guys on a personal level nice. I have good interactions with them. Predominantly, I didn't even mind Sawa. Sawa wasn't an issue, but obviously Peter the Plonker Smith was the issue. A bit like Paul Hutchins as well. It's the media is there to protect the globalist the globalist party's agenda. So the 32 agenda. So by voting for these parties, you're going to forward the globalist agenda of the one world government, one world currency, which Nigel has just alluded to there. So the SNP and the Greens, both which support Scottish independence, won 72 seats of the 129 seats in the Parliament. Unionist parties achieved a slight majority of votes in constituencies contested. So remember I said that even if they get a second referendum, if the SNP fail this, people are going to start to look at wee Nippy's record on domestic issues and see how bad she's been, how incompetent, like the most incompetent leader so far. And that's saying something. So in Scotland, I'm talking about in Scotland, so far since the restart of the Scottish Parliament. So the Unionist parties achieved a slight majority of votes in constituency contests. I don't think she'll actually go for a second referendum, which is going to look really embarrassing at the next election if she's not actually got a second referendum through for Scottish independence. And if she does get it through, she might lose it, which is then going to stop a third referendum. You might get another referendum in Devo Max, but you won't get a next referendum, which might be successful, but you won't get another independence referendum through if this happens as well. So it's a big problem for the SNP just now, because they could get the referendum through. Bojo does 4D chess, gives them the second referendum, and they lose. That's them get big problems, because they will not get another vote for 30, 40 years. It will be literally a lifetime, 30, 40, 50 years before there is another vote. So that's going to cause big problems for that. But there could be another vote, even if they lose a second referendum, on a Devo Max referendum, which I would vote to support, that we get more control of the Scottish, what we do in Scotland to control our own economy, etc., etc., to be able to deport people from our own immigration policy. So that would be something I would support as well. Voter turnout in the election reached 63.5%, the highest ever at a Scottish election. Local elections, not interested in any of that. Leadership change. The three parties underwent leadership changes. Oh no, that's ages ago. So quite a few retiring, some good MSPs. So Aileen Campbell apparently is in this social justice, men-hating, fully lesbian, Marxist and Islamist party who are making anti-men, anti-white men remarks and doing things like that as well. So she's in this party set up by wee Nippy, the alleged lesbian. So here we go. So constituency votes. These must be figures of the people that voted, not the whole electorate, because it doesn't make sense if it is. So the SNP got seats at dissolution. Oh, so they get 61. So I think they're up 2 seats. That 2 seats are up. Oh, that's in 2016. So forget all that. So I think this is it. I think we're down here. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about. This is the seats as far as I'm aware. Let me just make sure this is... So this is 2021. It does make sense because they've got 64 votes. So that's it. So let's start from the top. So Labour, the SNP got 1.2, nearly 1.3 million. Let's just say 1.3 million. But the people that couldn't bother to come along to the polling station was 1.5 million. So there is a massive, nearly a third, over a third of voters couldn't be bothered actually going along and voting. So 36% couldn't go along and vote. And that would have been, that's a greater number than the number of votes that the SNP got on their constituency vote, and also the Greens and the Liberal Democrats all added together. So you can imagine what a great impact if people were out and voting and they didn't not vote, and if they knew a wee bit more about politics, that they would be able to select a MP. They would have a massive impact on the Scottish electorate. I don't know who they would vote for, but and they might, because they'll probably get their information through predominantly the media. The media is then able to control them, although the media's grasp, and I think that's what the media are understanding, their grasp on how people are getting information is slipping. And then they're having to force Silicon Valley to make sure that they get priority through the search results, and people are going to other platforms where they're not going to get bullied, and these platforms are growing and they can't continue to bully. So this is that we'll probably move off of YouTube as well soon and onto our own platform as well, because they're trying to bully and they're trying to silence the voices, and they can't find either silence, and people are following the people that they actually like, and I'm more than happy to work with anybody from the left, the right and the centre if they want their voices heard on the new platforms that we're going to be doing. So the SNP are only up one seat. They missed it by one vote. So they missed it by one seat, having an overall majority. And by doing that, they've now had to get the 8 dough-balled Green Party, who are actually the most successful in that election, up to, you can see that in the constituency vote that they had, the SNP had 1,291,000, but in the regional vote they were down over 200,000, and that looks like because nobody was voting for the Greens in the constituency, they only got 34,000. They got 220,000, obviously, of the mentally challenged who voted for the Green Party. So we can then see, obviously, in the constituency vote, the Liberal, Undemocratic Democrats got 187,000, and they were actually down on the regional vote by about 50,000, and they get 5.6%. Had that held, they would have probably got up to 7%, and they might have got more list seats, because you can see here they get no regional votes at all. They're actually down one. And the watermelons, Moby and the Marxists are up 2. So obviously me calling the Marxists seems to be an attraction by the Scottish voter. So Anna Sawar, the anti-white racist and Islamofascist, is down 2. So it looks like and the Labour Party, the Liberals get 4 seats in the first past the post, and Labour Party could only get 2. And they were even hemorrhaging votes. They lost nearly 100,000 votes to get only 17.91% of the vote on the regional list. So, I mean, they're just going right down the tubes. I mean, once that starts to hit the same as the regional list at 16%, I mean, they're really in major problems. The Greens are in line to overtake the Labour Party. They're on the rise. They're getting up on the rise. And the Labour Party are falling. So everybody's now switching to the Moby and the Marxists for some strange reason, although they are absolutely mental. And the illiberal, not classical liberal at all, illiberal, undemocratic Democrats are falling as usual. So what are we seeing? Let's see. Look at all these beautiful new parties. Beautiful. Now, there's too many. This is the problem, and a lot of them are doing the same sort of thing. So I'm going to talk to you about where they are, and I'm going to get a political compass and try and accurately, not actually do the political compass, which would make it much more accurate, but from my knowledge of what they represent, where they would be on the political spectrum. So I'm going to try and do that. So I'm going to get every one of these a wee logo and try and plot them, not from an actual proper plotting, which would be me speaking to the leader and actually asking the leader where they are on the spectrum, but actually me going and doing something, judging them on the policy and where I think they are comparative to the policies that they're actually putting out and what their mentally would be. So I'll do wee symbols for each of these parties, and I'll plot it on the political compass, saying and explaining where it'll be. So this will be a part 2 to this just now. So let's look at Alba. So this is Alex Salmond's. So Alex Salmond's war against the SNP. I thought that Alex Salmond would have got. I thought Alex Salmond on the regional list would have outperformed both the Greens and the Liberal and Democratic Democrats. I think the Alex Salmond, for a new party, I mean, this was only started weeks before, is now bigger, has got more members than the Liberals, and I think they'll get more members than the Green Party. But Alex Salmond, politically, although he's more, I would say Alex Salmond's more a social democrat, whereas wee Nippy is more of a postmodernist Marxist, that he's still only got 1.66%. Now, that will climb. That will climb over the period of time. Now, they've got 4 years or 5 years, 4 years probably to the Westminster elections, but they'll get another 4 or 5 years running to actually increase it. I think he's getting a wee bit more too nostalgic about history, Alex, instead of pointing out where the country's going to go. You're talking about what's happened in the past. I think we're all patriotic Scots. We all know what's happened in the past. But as a political leader, you want to be talking about where the actual country's going to go. But you're going to have to get probably another 5-6% to start then getting up. So you're going to have to put a 2 in front of that probably to get over the 8% to start chiseling away and getting 8 MSPs, and that would be taken away from either the SNP or the Labour Party. But I think we're seeing the high watermark of it's very difficult for, I mean, they've done it excellently well, but it's very difficult for them to get 65 or a majority of seats in the Scottish Parliament. I don't even know if they'll be favourable, because they seem to be full of doughballs as well, that we would actually get a majority now. So the voters voted 1 million votes and got 2 MSPs. If that 1 million votes, which I already told you, when it went to other nationalist parties like the Greens, but nobody should be voting for the Greens, like the Alba Party, or I don't know, the Freedom Party, the Scottish Libertarian Parties and Independents. So I don't know. I don't even know where these people stand in nationalism versus unionism. So, but definitely the Scottish Libertarian Party. So if that 1 million votes had gone to the Alba Party or the Scottish Libertarian Party, as I said to them to do, they would have got many, many more nationalist MPs rather than 2. Many, many more. So say 500,000 went to the Scottish Libertarian Party, 500,000 would have put them on 20 above the Labour Party, and 500,000 had gone to the Alba Party, which would have put them on 20. So you would have got an additional 40 MSPs that were on the nationalist had the SNP voters voted for the Alba Party or the Scottish Libertarian Party, and then maybe some of the others. I don't know if the others are unionist or nationalist. We'll need to find that out over time. Try and actually speak to people who have actually are part of these parties. But that was stupid. So 1 million votes, had they gone 500,000 there, 500,000 there, 500,000 to the Libertarian Party, would have got both of these sides above the Labour Party. You would have got wiped. The Labour Party, the Unionist Party, who they dislike, would have would have got 20 seats for the Albert Party potentially, and 20 seats for the Scottish Libertarian Party, and they would have taken down the Conservatives, the Liberals, and well, they wouldn't have taken off but they would have reduced the Unionists, which is what you would want to do if you were a nationalist. But unfortunately, wee Nippy lied as usual, because she's a big parochial liar. 40% voted for the SNP, and you only got 2 votes, which was useless. The Alba Party or the Scottish Libertarian Party would have been better than doing alliances with the Dobogs and the Green Party. So again, the people were not thinking, if you're a nationalist, and if they had gone for the Alba Party and the Libertarian Party and the votes, and not voted for the SNP at all, on they can continue to vote for them if they want in the constituency, where they got 62 seats, but not vote for them at all on the second one, you would have got up to 40, potentially 40, and you would other nationalists from other political parties appointed, and you would have reduced the number of unionists massively in the Scottish Parliament as well. But wee Nippy wanted 1 million votes to get 2 MSPs, which she's still not got a majority, and she's going to have to work with the Dobogs and the Green Party. Oh, come on. I would in future not listen to the SNP and vote for your second vote not to get 2 MSPs. You would vote for the Alba Party. If you put a 5 in front of that, you're decimating both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, which if you're a unionist you would be wanting to do, and you would vote for the Scottish Libertarian Party, who also believe in Scottish independence, if you were that way, if you were a nationalist and not a unionist. Just now with the unionist side, we've got, that's about 1 million, just over 1 million votes, and then you've got this one as well. But I don't know. All for Unity is obviously a unionist party, and they get half as much as the nationalist Alba Party on the regional vote. So I don't know where the Scottish Family Party stand. Don't know about Independent Green Voice. Abolish the Scottish Parliament, I think it's a unionist party. Freedom Alliance, don't know. Reform UK's unionist, don't know. I take it Reclaim, maybe a unionist party. Vanguard, don't know. The Liberals, so I don't know if that's an actual classical Liberal party, only 102 votes. So that's quite interesting. So I wanted to start going further down. So there would have to be a massive increase on the Alba vote. Now, it makes sense, and if people don't wake up to not using the second vote for the Scottish National Party and voting for another nationalist party, as I said, then that would make more sense. You could have got 20 nationalist MSPs instead of 2. So that would have been 82, had 500,000 gone, you would have been higher up there than Labour, and you would have probably got 10 to 20 more nationalists than just 2. If you'd all vote, if the second vote had all voted for the Alba Party. So again, wee Nippy lying and just won 2 MSPs to get 64, which you still not got a majority, and you still got to speak to the Dobogs and the Green Party. So there's Georgie Porgy's mob. So don't forget, Georgie Porgy is down at the election down in what was the name? Beatley in Spain, and he's under not All for Unity, which is obviously another political party. So the girl Morel, who was very good as well. Unfortunately, she didn't get elected. The lawyer, hope she stands again. And All for Unity only get half as much as the. So the All for Unity is now a unionist party, and they are now the 6th largest party, 2, 4, 6. 7th largest party now in Scotland. Again, you can see they didn't run in the constituency votes, in the constituency list. So, but only still 0.86%. It just shows you how long it takes to actually climb up as a political entity, the political poll, to actually get it into 8%, where you're actually going to start to get a return of MSPs. But it will come, because these parties, they're slipping now. And once they start to see Scottish people say, right, okay, we're going to give somebody else a try, because we're living in democracy, and obviously a multi-party democracy. Oh, we'll just give somebody else a try. You're not very good, you're out, we'll give somebody else a try. Then we're going to see a much greater involvement of smaller parties, and it'll be much more interesting. We'll hopefully get new innovations, new ideas through, and it'll be much better. So Georgie Porgy, they didn't run any, because we're trying to help they didn't run any first list or constituency candidates, because they were trying to help Labour, the Liberals and the Conservative Party. But they did take them on the second vote, which I'm not sure would have actually helped, because we can see the majority of the seats by the Conservatives and the Labour Party have been on the second vote. They hardly get any, so they get 7 out of 73 seats. Is that right? 73 seats on the first part of the post. They got the majority of these seats in the second one. So All for Unity was basically taken away, but I think All for Unity is great. I think they should just keep going, and they would bring in, it looked like some really interesting people in it. Same with Richard Lucas. And Richard Lucas got the most first past the post votes. Let's just look down, apart from the independents, and they got the largest number of votes out with the main political parties, which is quite incredible. Quite incredible. I didn't think they were going to do as well as they've done. So that's them, the 8th largest party on vote share on the Scottish Parliament. I thought the Scottish Parliament, the Scottish Family Party had been about for years. I remember something about Scottish Family Party way back about 20 years ago. But it says it's only been established in 2017. And Richard Lucas has done very well. 16,000 votes. Very interesting. But if you consider that even with 16,000 votes, getting the largest number of votes out with the main political parties is only 0.59% of the people that voted, not the overall electorate. So they're still moving up. These are all new parties, relatively new parties. I think the Family Party's been about for slightly longer. And they're all on the political rise. The Alba Party, obviously Alex Salmon has the biggest name, and Georgie Porgy, Galloway, has the biggest political name, and they've actually grown the largest. Although All for Unity is quite a mixed bag of politicians across the political compass, on the political spectrum, but all believe in unionism, which is quite a unique political makeup. Whether or not it works, because these people have got very different political ideologies, but whether or not that stays together, that's quite interesting in itself. But just for the sake of being unionists, Georgie Porgy's new party have done. So Georgie Porgy, and don't forget, as I said, Georgie Porgy is standing under the Workers of the World Unite Party down at the Bately in Spain by-election. So he's now in another party to stand down against the Labour Party, which Georgie Porgy might do very well down there, and take a lot of votes that might have gone to the Labour Party, which will mean that the Conservative Party will win. And apparently there's a lot of problems for the Labour Party standing, and I don't know if they're going to parachute in another corporatist globalist Remain shill into the party. Somebody wants to rejoin the EU and not actually represent the people who would probably have voted to leave the EU. And so they're obviously now getting pissed off with Keir Starmer just bringing all these Remainers in to leave seats for the Labour Party, and they'll just jump into Bojo. So the Scottish Family Party are now 8th largest political party from the actual votes, which is quite incredible. So, but it's still a large jump to actually get from there, actually to start winning seats. As we can see, the Liberals didn't win any seats on the regional list with 5.06%. And then we've got the independent Green voice. I think that was actually potentially set up to take away. I don't know what these guys represent. And they nearly get 10,000 votes. I don't know if that was to take votes away from the Green Party. It's quite an interesting way of doing it. So I don't know what they represent. We'll have to find that out. We'll go in and look at these parties. If there's any representatives for smaller parties that want to speak to me, I'm more than happy to have a chat. Abolition for Scottish Parliament, 7,000 votes. So obviously it's got a constituency. That's the 8th largest, 9th largest for the Greens. So some other independent Green voice, God knows what they stand for. Obviously abolish the Scottish Parliament must be another unionist party. So I would suggest that maybe, well, I don't know if the All for Unity want to abolish the Scottish Parliament, but they could be looking to actually work with other parties. So some of these parties should and could roll into each other again. So, for example, UK Reform Party and UKIP, if these two parties were combined, that's 5,000 and UKIP got 3,800. So that's nearly 10,000 votes. So they jump into 9th place, a combined Reform UK and UKIP party. If they continue to keep their votes at that level, they then jump into 9th place. And they're then starting to press up the actual political hierarchy to actually start to then creep into the replacing of the main parties, and these parties will be replaced eventually. These new up and coming parties will increasingly increase their vote share. They're all getting bigger. The Scottish Libertarian Party started off with 16 votes. I'll come to them in a second. But all of these are getting bigger. So there's obviously quite a large constituency for the abolition of the Scottish Parliament with 7,000 votes. Whether these will start to cannibalise each other and actually stop the ego thing and maximise the bringing together of these parties, or whether or not they're all going to be individually different, then that's going to be a major challenge for them to actually grow, to actually start to break in to get seats, because 8.12 is quite high. And even a 3% downswing for so I mean, if you look at how low the Greens got in the Greens only got 1.29%, which is not much higher. In fact, Alba Party beats them in the first past the post, but they get no seats first past the post. The Liberals got 187,000, 6 points, so they're actually down on if they were able to hold that maybe from the Liberal Democrats on the regional vote, they might have got actual regional seats, but they were down on the regional vote. But the Liberals got much more, nearly 3 times as many as the Green Party did in the constituency vote. So we've now got a few parties now, the smaller parties actually standing on the constituency vote. So the Scottish Family Party, the most, then the Freedom Alliance did very well. In fact, the Scottish Libertarian Party are as I said to you, I told you the SNP, the Scottish Libertarian Party, SLP, were going to get thousands of votes. And if you look over here, they nearly get 5,000 votes. Remember, I told you that they only started with 16 votes, or 12 or 16, I can't remember, the first time that Stephen Crichton stood for the Scottish Libertarian Party, where he got 12 or 16 votes. And now they're getting thousands and thousands of votes. And I remember I told you that they were going to take off thousands votes. As usual, politically, I was proven correct as usual. I said that the Labour Party were going to lose up to 5 seats. They were at one point down 3 seats. They're going to continue to struggle, and now they only lost -2. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? So so all these parties, and I think one of the great parties, we're going to come on to this just now. So let's look further down. So the actual first past the post, apart from the Family Party, the second one's first past the post was the Scottish Libertarian Party, which has got thousands and thousands of votes. Massive, and they didn't stand in every constituency. So can you imagine they stood in that's the maximum amount of votes they would have got across the country in the second vote. But can you imagine the Scottish National Party, 500,000 votes had gone to the Scottish Libertarian Party, who also believe in independent Scotland, had gone from that to that. They would have got 20 seats, they would have reduced the Unionists down, and they would have got much more than 2. But because Wee Nippy's stupid, and she only wanted 2 more seats, and now she's got to do deals with the incompetent Green Party who want to shut down North Sea Oil. Oh, come on! So, very interesting though. So the Scottish Libertarian Party, let's look down. UKIP, 700 seats, 700 votes. The trade unions did quite well. Restore Scotland, don't know really much about them. The Communist Party, Renew, no. So, and the Independents were the only people who beat both so the Independents were first, then the Scottish Family Party, then the Scottish Libertarian Party, Restore Scotland. I don't know what they're all about just now. But what I would suggest is that some of these parties who are in the same part of the political spectrum just amalgamate, because it's going to be pointless getting small amounts of votes if you amalgamated, like for example, what was Colin Fox's? Was it Renew or Reclaim? Reclaim. See, it's all, we don't know what they are. Reclaim or Renew would join the Reform Party. So it's not going to be a massive boost, but it's still going to get them up. It then puts them, Reform, ahead of the Freedom Alliance now. The Freedom Alliance now, so we went to work this out, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. So the Freedom Alliance, out of nowhere, brand new party, new. All these new parties right out the block have all bounced ahead of other established parties have been there for a period of time, all going up. So, but as I said, the Scottish Libertarian Party have had their best year ever, I think. I don't know if they've had a better year. They did quite well at the Westminster elections. They were getting 600 votes, 500 votes here, but they are definitely increasing. Obviously, as you know, I've been involved with that, and I was involved with the Brexit Party before it became the Reform Party. So all of these things are going up. Freedom Alliance now, I obviously was speaking to people from the Freedom Alliance, lovely bunch, but whether the Freedom Alliance and Reclaim were going to join together rather than Reclaim and Reform, I mean, it just gets confusing. I don't even know what he's done. Obviously, I know what the Communist Party of Britain are. I don't know where the Liberals are. I don't know where the Social Democrats are. Are these authoritarian Liberals and authoritarian Social Democrats? Do they believe in the globalist agenda, or is the Liberal Party a classical Liberal Party? These both joined to form the illiberal, liberal, undemocratic Democrats. So I'm not sure where they stand, if these are classical Liberals. And if they are classical Liberals, then we need to get a chat whether the Social Democrats are classical Liberals really, and the Liberal Democrats are classical Liberals. So we need to start to rationalise out these, because a lot of them are doing the same thing. And could be, they need to start to talk to each other if they're in similar parts of the political compass, talk to each other and amalgamate. The fact of Reform UK and UKIP, if that was together, we're talking about the 11th largest party. Sorry, the 9th largest party, and going up. So obviously Rome wasn't built in a day, and all these things have to happen, but it's pointless having these small parties where you could actually just accumulate. These guys could still stand, because Reform UK was not in every seat. They haven't even run in the seats where you have to run in the seats. If you're a proper political party, you have to fight in every election where you can. Even the Scottish Libertarian Party weren't in every constituency seat. So that vote was probably underdone, as well as this vote being underdone, because they weren't in the actual every seat within Scotland. But obviously Freedom Alliance are doing great as well, but I don't know if they have got a depth of knowledge of the political understanding. It's not that they are not political or maybe don't want to be political. We had a great conversation with them as well. But there is overlap here, and it would be beneficial if these people spoke to each other, could agree. All of them could stand, because individually they're not big enough to actually stand in each seat just now. But if they actually combined, they would have members that could stand in each seat. They would cover enough. That would get out the first past the post vote, which would then have an impact in their secondary vote if they're in every seat. And it gives a distinct opportunity for the Scottish people to be able to vote for other political entities. Whereas I don't know if this and this is actually a change. I think this and this is more of the political neutrality of what's already there. I think this might be a change. Scottish Libertarian Party, don't know what the Independent Greens are. I wouldn't support the abolition of the Scottish Parliament, so I wouldn't be voting for them, but they've obviously got a constituency. I would vote for Freedom Alliance, UK Reform Party, Libertarian Party, UKIP, although these are very different parties. I don't know where the Freedom Alliance stand in unionism versus independence. That's another thing. They have to take a stance. They can't be both. You have to know where you are. Could the UK Freedom Alliance join with the Liberal Party, the Social Democratic Party and the Renew Party? Could the Renew Party join with the UK Reform Party at a political opportune moment where you maximise the effect? Is there a requirement for all these smaller parties where you could actually have joint parties and actually have a larger party if these people believe in the same thing? Some of them believe in the same thing but don't know that they believe in the same thing, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and over the period of time, I'm going to do a political compass and get all these political parties and try and point them without actually going out and speaking to them individually, try and place them on the political compass and find out if there's any overlap here where these parties are. So Count Dankula obviously beat the Communist Party in the Motherwell and Wishaw by-election, which was quite funny. So, and obviously the Libertarian Party is significantly ahead of the other parties, but great result for them. I think that's the most votes the Scottish Libertarian Party has ever had. I'm slightly disappointed in the Reform UK Party. I thought they would have got a higher percentage of votes. I'm surprised they never put out any first past the post candidates. Very surprised at that as well. I think they have to start doing that if they're going to be an actual serious party. Obviously UKIP has already done that, and they've got a sizable amount of votes as well. So, very interesting. We're going to see the overlap on the political issues, why like the Women's Equality Party and the TUC are not in together. I don't know what animal welfare is about. Maybe they're a sort of pressure group, so you could probably speak to them. So these three parties could actually got together, and that's making up to 5,000 votes. So you're then going ahead of the Scottish Libertarian Party. But I don't know what Vanguard is. I don't know where the Liberal Party or the Social Democrats are in the political compass, so I can't make any claims there. I don't know what the difference between Reclaim and Renew is. So there's a number of things that I don't know, and obviously I'm politically attuned. I'll be able to find out very quickly once we start to nail down. So we'll start to nail down these political parties, and I'll also speak about what's happening between Nippy's manifesto and the Green Party, the Marxist Party, and how we're going to have more of a shambles for the next 5 years from these absolute doughballs. So I hope that was quite interesting, but I think there has to be a rationality of this, and the significance of the amount of voters who couldn't be bothered putting an X in a box, or maybe didn't know where to put the X and didn't understand. But now you've got a plethora of choices to actually put your X in. I guess some of the people, if I don't know, or there's other people who are not as politically interested, they're not going to know what these other parties actually stand for, and hopefully we can get to speak to the people in the parties so we can actually find out what is actually happening with these parties and where they actually really are in the political spectrum. Now I'm going to guesstimate it as where they are, but it would be better to actually hear from them, to actually then be able to find out where the political parties, from the leaders of the parties, to find out where they actually are in the political spectrum. And we'll certainly give them an opportunity to speak on the Guerilla TV channel, whether it's on YouTube or anywhere else. So, quite interesting. So we're going to be governed by the SNP, postmodernist Marxist wee nippy. Don't know how long she's got left. And slap my bitch up. And the Green Party. So, what are you guys saying? Good day, everyone. Thanks. Bye, Terry. That's so true, David. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, while they are anti-Semitic and go around burning cities and brown shirts. Yeah, that's it. Not very nice. Vanguard is probably commie, is it? I don't know. Liberal is probably bottom right as well. Well, I'm not. I think we're all guesstimating it. We don't actually know where these political parties are. We're just trying to we can guesstimate it. I mean, let me give you an example. Right. So here's the political compass. So Liberals go right down this sort of area here, maybe slightly up, maybe the centre, so the basically centres. So you could have a massively authoritarian Liberal Party or a libertarian Liberal Party. So obviously I'm down here, so I would be supporting a libertarian Liberal Party, slightly centre right, 4 down, 2 across. So about here, I'm about here. So I'm a centrist, so I'm a liberal, but it's such the Liberal Democrats, the Social Democrats could be over here, and the Liberals could be here, and the Liberal Democrats could be here, the Christian Democrats could be here, from the Conservative Party. So all of them are, I would suggest, moderately authoritarian. And we don't know if the Social Democrats are just like Sawar and Keir Starmer on the Social Democratic left as well. We don't know where they are, where the Social Democrats Party is and the Liberal Party is, and how that differs from the Liberal Democrats. If the Liberal Party are already down here in this party, we may not have to set up another political party. But I would define it by calling it the Libertarian Liberal Party. But the Liberals are all Social Democratic Liberals, Social Democratic Libertarian Liberals are all in this sort of section here. And they're basically centrists. But, I mean, it's so varied just to call yourself a Social Democrat. The Social Democrats or the Liberals Party globalist? Are they moving towards the one world government or the patriotic? That's another thing we don't know. So these are things that we don't know about the Liberal, although it was very funny them taking the piss out of Humza Useless with the love symbol and kidding on that Humza Useless, which is an Islamofascist and Nazi, that Humza Useless and telling us to love everybody. Which is strange coming from a person who's got an ideology that has killed 100 million people. All I can see is coloured squares. Yeah, I know, but the coloured squares are the actual political compass. This is the colour squares are for the political spectrum. Usually the political spectrum was just a left-right dichotomy, but now we've actually got the depth, so it's now got depth. So it would be like communists and National Socialists and Social Democrats and Liberals and Christian Democrats, and they would all have been along this sort of line. Fascists, Nazballs. So we would only be working in moderately or severely authoritarian regimes, but now we've got a big spectrum that has not actually been covered. You know me too well, Marion. That's because forehead's swollen, Michael. So this is basically what the situation is. We don't know about whether or not these are libertarian liberals or libertarian social democrats, which would make their policies completely different. We do not know this situation. Right, guys, I've been talking for an absolute ton of time. I absolutely love you guys. My pal said I shouldn't talk as long, but I just quite enjoy it. So, my baby gorillas, love you guys, and I'll see you all soon. And I'll get that thing, and we'll try and point on the political compass where the actual political parties actually are, and see if we can get some sit-down meetings and find out exactly, truthfully, where they are. Love my baby gorillas.